Hello everyone, welcome to the MTG at Home Modern Invitational Season 6. Like I said, we are the MTG at Home Discord server, and you can go ahead and join us, and we'll have a link available for everyone to hop in, play some Paper Magic in this wonderful quarantine world. My name is Brad, and I am joined today by Jared. Jared, how are you?
Hi, Brad.
Like I said, this is the 6th Invitational that we have going on for the MTG at Home Discord server. Now, we've had a bunch of players fight every week, hard and long. Yeah. For this opportunity to have a spot in the top 8 for the Modern Invitational. And we're going to have a few different deck lists. The first one we're going to have is Crab Mill. We have Miracles. We have 2 different variations of Rakdos Shadow. We also have Hollow One representing Is It Phoenix, Copycat, and Oops All Spells. And let's go ahead and take a look at the first matchup for our Table 1. Now, Jared, we have an interesting one here. It's going to be Rakdos Shadow versus Miracles. And what are you expecting out of this matchup?
It's just the old versus the new. It's definitely going to be interesting, to say the least. I've not watched a Shadow, obviously Rakdos Shadow being new because of Scourges of Skyclaves, but I've not watched a Rakdos Shadow versus Miracles matchup in a while. The Miracles player added Counterbalance to the main list, 4 copies of Counterbalance, and I kind of love it, and I'm really curious to see what kind of a headache that causes for Rakdos. I really, truly do not know how this will go down. I'm not sure if the speed is going to be a problem, but one Terminus and usually Miracles can secure those aggro list matchups, so we'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting. Timely reinforcements in the board, too, is going to play a huge part in probably games 2 and 3, if there is one. I'm interested just because I don't know, and I haven't seen, again, like I said, Miracles versus Shadow ever.
Yeah, speaking of Shadow, let's go ahead and take a look at the first list for Shadow so we can see if there's anything notable to kind of, pick apart based on the sideboard or anything in the 75 at all in this matchup. And the one thing I do want to make note of in this version, they are running a couple of main deck options of Apostle's Blessing. So I know we were talking a bit before the cast, Jared, you were saying that this deck is a lot more reactive rather than just, empty your hand as fast as possible.
Yeah, so you see Rakdos Shadow in 2 forms, really. It's not that drastically different, but you see Bomat Courier versus Soulscar Mage, and then their spell package is more proactive or reactive, depending. This list, not running Bomat Courier, and instead going with a more reactive list with, like you said, Blessings, Dismembers, 3 copies of Battle Rage, which that'll be interesting to say the least, but they're definitely going more prowess than they are just their Shadow package, really, or the big boy package.
Yeah, and taking a look at the sideboard, is there anything that kind of stands out as being just automatic includes once we go to game 2 in this matchup?
The spell bombs, and that's about it. There's not, you take out Dismembers and you put in spell bombs if you're Rakdos Shadow. There's not a lot else you can do. Kroxa is fine, but it's also your creature package as is already the speed you want to be going. There's not a lot. You're basically relying on the 60 for Rakdos Shadow, and there's not a lot of outs otherwise. Miracles is Miracles. A lot of the game plan against Miracles is to hope they don't get Miracles. So it's not, I don't want to say RNG based, because Miracles is a deck for a reason that they can, almost pick and choose what they see, but it's not what you'd like to be playing versus Rakdos Shadow, whose game plan is almost always executed the same exact way, and it does it to freakish consistency.
Well, and let's go ahead and take a look at the Miracles list. And looking at this, I would imagine that this is a pretty straightforward, almost stock list. Is there anything that stands out to you in the 75 at all?
I mentioned it before. I really love the copies of Counterbalance. A lot of people are playing Condemn also, and not just Miracles, but a lot of lists are playing Condemn now just because Scourge giving people Scourge's health back usually kills another Scourge, or people giving Death Shadow's health back shrinks the Scourge like you wouldn't believe. A lot of condemns I've seen lately as someone who plays with Scourge. And the other one is Counterbalance. I personally haven't seen a heck ton of counterbalances in Miracles in the past, but for what the meta is right now, which is turns 1 through 3 permanents, yeah, Counterbalance is actually a really sweet card. I'm curious to see how effective it can be.
Yeah. All right, now looking at the sideboard here, I imagine Aether Gust in some numbers coming in this matchup. Anything else that you see as just being really good against Rakdos?
I can't really see a heck ton of Aether Gust coming in, unless they really just can't handle Soul Scars or Swift Spears. But, I mean, you have a Celestial Purge that definitely comes in, and other than that, you're just kind of putting in what you normally put in with timely reinforcements for health gain. Again, shrinking Scourge as much as humanly possible. This is very much a 60s list. Like, you're not like Jund bringing in Graveyard Hate or something of that nature, where you like need you need land destruction to beat Tron or whatever it may be. It's just kind of list versus list, and you have things that go along with your game plan, don't really change it in any way, and that's what reinforcements and the Celestial Purge do. I mean, all Miracles are trying to do is delay it to get to turn 4 above 11 health, and then they're pretty much set to go. And all Scourge is trying to do is the exact opposite: to kill them hopefully around turn 4, or just before turn 4.
Yeah. Well, before we head down to the battlefield to get ready for match 1 between Rakdos Shadow and Miracles, do you have any predictions? I know you said you haven't seen this matchup literally ever, but now's the time to place your bets.
I mean, I haven't seen Miracles ever, and I think there's a decent reason for that. So I'm going to go with Rakdos Shadow. I mean, it's very popular right now. That's because it's ridiculously strong right now. Miracles does have the advantage where it makes Lurrus almost irrelevant, so I don't think the Companion is going to play a big role here. I mean, they have Path to Exile, Celestial Purge, they have Terminus, which does nothing about destroying cards, so that could be nice. It's tough to predict a matchup like this. I'm going the way of Rakdos Shadow, but I can easily see Miracles winning. Again, like I said, I mean, a turn 2 or 3 Terminus blows this whole game open for Miracles, so...
Yeah, I'm a big fan of control decks. I love the idea of Miracles and the way that it plays. I'm hoping to see Miracles pull it out. I feel like if this was versus the other version of Rakdos, where it was all just kind of dump your hand, I'd kind of lean more in their favor. But because this is the more reactive list of Rakdos Shadow, I can definitely see Miracles pulling this one out. But I do think we are ready to head out to the battlefield to get ready for match 1 between Vector and Valifor.
I mean,
of course.
For that reason, I would also say I'm actually leading the way of Rakdos Shadow, because one Apostle's Blessing on a Path to Exile, and you're off to the races with your prowess creatures. Beaumont is always doing one. And again, Beaumont is entirely for the list that just dump, grindy matchup, whatever. This list is purposely saying, I'm going to wait till last possible second, and I'm going to make this creature a 6/7, and your health is going to go to 0 hopefully as quickly as humanly possible. Like turn 1 Swift Spear, turn 2 Soul Scar, and to turn 2 Soul Scar and Death Shadow is entirely possible for a list like this.
Yeah, I can definitely see that as well. But I'd like to definitely say again, this is all made possible from the MTG at Home Discord server. If you want to play Paper Magic like you could maybe about a year ago, earlier in the year. I know it's been quite a while. It definitely feels like 20. Yeah, join us for some Paper Magic. Even if you don't want to play some Paper Magic, just want to hang out and talk about Magic, I'm here, Jared's here, and we got a whole big community ready to kind of, just welcome arms, right? It's all about the gathering.
I'm not really here. Don't rely on that. I don't want to give that illusion of activity, but I do exist. You can tag me and I'll respond. but I have a life. Oh, speaking of, just so everyone is fully aware, I am leaving in 3 hours due to prior obligations. So this man over here, you can judge him all you want, but he's gonna be carrying some heavy weight later. So big shout out to Brad. This is a in the future shout out. This is I'm giving you my blessings a couple hours from now. And shout out to Foam also for helping us organize the stream. Is it Foam? Do I pronounce it Foam?
Yes,
okay.
It is Foam. You can also say Sean. You can say, I'm not saying Foam. It's Foam. Okay.
I'll say Foam. Shout out to Foam, which sounds like a French delicacy.
I try it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We
All right.
I'm as far as the matchups today go, I did not expect a top 8 list like the one we have. Rakdos Shadow makes perfect sense to me. The meta right now is very much, at the top you have Shadow lists, you have 4C lists, you have a few control lists in there in some form of Omnath, Titan lists, the T1 decks that have been around for a while, plus Shadow, or Rakdos, or Scourge, I should say, way more specifically. But we have, is it Phoenix, which just has not existed in any sort of competitive shell, really, since the banning.
Well, I'd like to say real quick, Is It Phoenix has been popping up, for those of you who played Pioneer, it's been popping up a bit more thanks to Magmatic Channeler. So I would imagine that this player has just kind of looked at that format as some inspiration, be like, hey, they're running Magmatic Channeler. Maybe it's enough to kind of revitalize this deck. I don't know how truthful that is, but I'm definitely rooting for it. I'd love to see it do some...
I don't want you to ever mention another format in the modern stream ever again. I don't want to hear about Pioneer. I don't want to hear about Standard. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. I'm a big fan of Magmatic Channeler, so I can see that, but that's not, changing the deck. That's not reviving it. Clearly, the pilot for this list is extremely familiar and talented with this list to make top 8. We have a Hollow One list, which I played against one Hollow One in my past, 20 leagues, maybe one game against Hollow One, and it was a doozy. It was interesting, but I did not expect Hollow One to be making any sort of resurgence. But a format without a ton of Obstinate Balos or Nullhide Feroxes, Burning Inquiry is the most annoying card on the planet. So I'm all for it. I'm interested to see how they perform. I honestly, personally, am a believer of Hollow One, especially now, because you don't want to be discarding cards at random. I can just speak from my perspective. It's the most obnoxious thing in the world. So, I'm curious to see how that goes, but that's an exciting list. I want to see that list versus our Copycat list. We have a Copycat and a Mill rounding out the rest, and I'm just... It's honestly an exciting top 8. It's very interactive. We only have one Primeval deck. Shame on you. Actually, no, I'm sorry. No Primeval decks. I don't know what I'm talking about. I meant one Solitaire list in Oops All Spells. And I think Modern could not be in a better place right now. There are cards that definitely need to leave for the rest of forever and never come back. But other than a select 3 cards in Modern, it's a super healthy format. Nothing is oppressive. Nothing feels like you can't beat it. There are decks in T2 to 1 that all rock, paper, scissors each other. And that's how we ended up with the top 8 like this. We end up with Hollow One and Is It Phoenix in the top 8. So.
All right, Battlefield is ready. We're going to go ahead and take on Rakdos Shadow and Miracles. And looks like they're going to go ahead and see who's going to go first. Now, like you said, we're kind of split between where we think this match is going to end up. I'm leaning a bit towards Miracles. You're leaning a bit towards Rakdos Shadow, but we both agree it could go either way.
Yeah.
Especially with,
shout out to Raymond for that Arid Mesa art, by the way. I love that art. It's so pretty. But opening hands for either of these people, Rakdos Shadow, obviously you're going with your one permanence. You're either playing a Swift Spear or you're playing a Soul Scar Mage. Very rarely is your opening turn just a Thoughtseize. For Miracles, you're looking to keep any combination of Path to Exile, Remand, Ops, Condemns early. Obviously, probably one of the more ideal hands is one or two forms of spot removal, and from there, the rest of your deck draws pretty well. Being on the draw here for Miracles could also conceivably be an issue, just because Counterbalance certainly gets weaker when your opponent is already just throwing up their cards like Rakdos Shadow does. So a pretty passive turn one, probably the Opt we mentioned, and or Path to Exile. The Swift Spear, as we talked about, already coming down, and Rakdos Shadow is more than ready to go. Rakdos Shadow is at not 19 health, but
yeah, we have it backwards, just so the viewers know. Looks like we have the life totals backwards, unfortunately, but that's something we can easily, fix.
We're okay. That makes more sense. I was very confused. Yeah, we have the.
Yeah, I was too.
They both have V names, so if you're dyslexic like me, you don't really pick up on that very quick. But anyway. Already have 14 health, hasn't even played a spell this turn, has a creature on the battlefield. It's tough. I mean, if you have Opt and Path to Exile, it's not the worst thing in the world, but with how quickly this can go, this is just a brutal start for Rakdos Shadow, and especially against the Miracles player. The Thoughtseize coming out puts him at 12 health afterwards, another 4 damage going to come in eventually. 3 islands shown. Omen of the Sea, Cryptic, Terminus, and that's an ugly hand for Miracles. That is, I'm not even certain what you would pick. I mean, this is just not good at all, no matter how you twit. I mean, for Rakdos Shadow, I think you would go, or you lean towards Omen of the Sea, just because they need this scry to be good, but this is just an ugly looking hand. I don't.
And he goes with Force of Negation.
I mean, I entirely reasonable. I just personally wouldn't shy that way. And right now we're looking at a 3 and a 5 health, 5 damage coming through, so 8 total coming through from the Rakdos Shadow list, putting him at. Is that another? Oh, I know. I'm sorry. Putting him.
No, he's just showing again. Yeah,
11 health. Yeah, I mean, this is turn 2, by the way, and we know Valifor only has an Omen of the Sea, and I don't think he's gonna live to see turn 3. So this top deck basically needs to be a miracle, literally, or this is pretty much sign, seal, deliver. I'm almost somewhat surprised Valifor kept that hand.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, what in that hand made you feel like he saw it and was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep this?
I have no idea. I believe the players know the lists going into the tournament, so
yes, they do.
I'm shocked. And also there's a Luris reveal. Like, this is my companion. So a lot of signs right off the bat that you're at least against a tempo lit. Like, at the very best, you're against a Jund Luris list. At the worst, you're against this, which is certainly more likely, where you're just going very quickly. And you're at 10 health if you're Valifor. Mana's still untapped. There's a ton of potential available for Vector. He's opting to only go with 2 damage, so that's a sigh of relief if you're Valifor. You still have that Omen of the Sea, and you're hoping to pick up a Terminus on the way. This untapped land easily could just go right into, Shadow and Scourge. But this is not the ideal start.
It's not looking great for a Miracles player. Again, they can get down Omen, but like you said, they literally need a miracle to kind of get this one out.
Yeah.
And this is just too fast of a start and too slow of a hand for Miracles. That's literally the worst possible outcome for this first game.
I would also say that was honestly not even that terribly fast of a start from Vector. I mean, there was a Thoughtseize mixed into there, but if that was like a Lava Dart or Lightning Bolts, like, that could have just been over. The game just could have been over. So I mean, not necessarily complete. Like that wouldn't have been an 19 health swing, but I don't know. That was a big bank on keeping that hand. Well, we'll see how it plays out.
And we see Ominous come down, and what are you looking for if you're the Miracles player? As we see him keep one on top.
You're praying to God you have Terminus or spot removal. I mean, you don't have a ton of things available to you for, I mean, you don't have any life gain available to you, and there's not like a Teferi won't do a ton. And yeah, this is just a pass from Valifor. And we know he has Cryptic and he has a Terminus sitting in his hand, and one other card that he choose to, I mean, he put one on top and he kept it. So I mean, he probably has a Condemn or Path to Exile or Remand even available to him, but there's not a lot of options right now for Valifor, and it's more just, I mean, that card that he picked pretty much has to be a spot removal, or this is just going to be brutal. And right now I'm wondering, Vector's previous turn was pretty passive. I'm wondering if he kept a Scourge or Death Shadow in his hands for the purpose of Terminus, like just playing around Terminus and hoping to play creatures right afterwards, which you can kind of go back and forth on and say that is not necessarily something you want to play around. Archmage's Charm was the card, and hopefully stealing a Swift Spear, but the Apostle's Blessing that we mentioned before came into play there and royally screwed up that.
And now we're seeing Death Shadow come down.
But this goes back to what I was mentioning before. Okay, that's extremely fortunate. Valifor's...
There's the miracle.
Yeah, well, Valifor's plan was just basically hoping for them. His plan had very little action, so I'm definitely surprised he kept it. 4 health is super compromised, especially with no life gain in his deck. I love the counterbalance play, but going back and saying again, I think Vector had that Death Shadow all along, and he didn't play it to play around a potential Terminus. He grabbed the Lurrus before instead of going for the Death Shadow play. He would have won the game had he made his opponent have it, essentially. And there's Lurrus for you right there. Wonderful companion. Wonderful card. Not a pretty fair card after the companion changes, but busted as all heck beforehand.
Yeah, we're happy to see that one get changed.
I'm not. Now, as a Lurrus player, I am not. But
Oh, okay. For selfish reasons, I got you.
For incredibly selfish reasons, entirely.
I mean, for selfish reasons, I'd like to see Kethis come back and Pioneer, but whatever. As we see Jace the Mind Sculptor come down.
I was going to say right now, this is super interesting. Right now, from very fortunate that he got a Jace. We know he has the Cryptic command still in his hands. Chose to bounce the Lurrus, which I think was the correct call, and just in delaying. I think he's going to go Lurrus, Swift Spear, and potentially, or there's Death Shadow you can argue, but Swift Spear just puts. You basically need to get rid of this Jace because counterbalance is starting to become just a nightmare for you. Leaves Jace alone, letting the Brainstorm go through. The 1 mana left over. Oh, I'm sorry. We can barely see the graveyard. I think. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. They were put on the bottom library. I'm dumb. Terminus. Yep, I'm dumb. Never mind. Carry on, everybody. I forgot. I literally mentioned beforehand that Terminus doesn't kill anything, so advantage miracles. But then I realized I'm a silly goose.
Now, you said you want to leave this Jace alone for now. Do you still want to hold true to that as you're the Rakdos Shadow player?
Oh, no. I meant kill the Jace. I mean, Jace is going to be your night. Jace in combination with counterbalance is not ideal. Especially Valifor right now, essentially what he's going to be actively looking for is 1 mana spells / his miracles, as we mentioned. The advantage he has right here is he does have Omen of the Sea to potentially draw into his Terminus. Well, not potentially, to draw into his Terminus should he need it. And we'll see how it plays out from there. Oh, it's just another Omen to scry the Terminus we already know he has. And yep, there it is. Hello. And bye-bye goes Lurrus. So the Lurrus play back-to-back from Vector is pretty telling that his reactionary spells are now held up in his hand. So the reactionary spells probably is some combination of Teamer's Battle Rage, Dismember. I don't think he has an Agadiums. I think he would have played that before, but we know it's not Lightning Bolts. We know it's not Lava Darts. Otherwise, his Jace wouldn't exist. So, I mean, the burn was effective, but now incredibly, I don't even know the word for it. Put out. The burn was put out. What is the term for it?
Extinguished.
Thank you, man. Better English than I. This is a power position from Valifor.
Cryptic Command coming down again for Valifor.
Well, this is probably just going to be the life of Vector from now on. I mean, I told you need to kill Valifor before turn 4. I mean, that is you need to. And the 2-3 cards that Vector has in his hands, we mentioned, that's the going back and forth. Are you picking a proactive or reactive hand or list in general? And he chose reactive. And when you're against a deck like Valifor's, who your reactive spells do virtually nothing, you end up in this very awkward, very crap situation, I think is a good way of putting it. And I think this is mostly going to be a deadlock from here on out. Any combination of counterbalance, Jace, this is just a nightmare.
Yeah, now those reactive spells are pretty much dead in hand because we see 3 Fairy come down.
Yeah. I mean, the back-to-back Luris was incredibly telling that he had virtually no answer for what's happening right now. Counterbalance being held up means Terminus, Terminus costs 6, so that makes it virtually irrelevant, but it looks like Vector is opting for the burn, or is he going for Jace? I'm curious to see which route he chooses to go here. We obviously can't hear really what the players are doing, and it's a lot of assumptions. We can't see hands.
What would you go for?
I mean, I would just go face. Valifor does not have life gain, and you just kind of got to hope that you pick up another Lava Dart and or Lightning Bolt, which is, going back to my early conversation, the advantage of Counterbalance right now...
You did go face.
Yeah. The advantage of Counterbalance right now is that you can keep it on 1. Like, you can just keep putting a Condemn or an Opt or a Path to Exile on top of your library over and over again, because really the only things that are killing you now are the Swift Spear, Lightning Bolts, or Lava Darts. So I'm kind of surprised he keeps throwing... I mean, Terminus is Terminus, but you have so many ways around creatures now that you basically is just unnecessary. Valifor's complete power position is totally aided by the fact that he's holding up a Mystic Sanctuary should he ever need it. So this is not quite good right now if you are in Vector's little area. I mean, he has no creatures in the graveyard. He hardly will ever see creatures in his graveyard. Valifor is pretty much just going to be playing his own little chess game right now. And there's another counterbalance, which does absolutely nothing. But why not? That's what we call putting it on the table. Here's my second one.
I think that's just a flex. Yeah,
it is just a flex at this point. Entirely a flex. Yep, and there it is. And what is that card? It is a Condemn. Yeah, okay. So this is what I'm referring to. 1 mana spells are no longer relevant in this game for Vector. And all he has to do is brainstorm, put Condemn back on top, and then this is... And if he plays Scourge, all he has to do is minus Teferi. So, this is pretty much a lock. I mean, you still have to find a way to win. There are very thin, tiny venues that you can escape with Rakdos Shadow, but I don't know if that's coming.
So I guess he's going to be looking for Entreat the Angels as his finisher. I think that's the only thing I'm seeing out of the list that Miracles can put it away, outside of a scoop from Rakdos.
Yeah, I mean, you got to scoop at some point. I mean, for the sake of us, please scoop at some point. But yeah, there's you're absolutely correct. But there is no reason There's absolutely nada reason Valifor needs to do anything besides lock him. You don't need to get like Angels is completely unnecessary. Just keep ticking up, just keep putting Condemn on top of your deck, and just let this game play out until Vector eventually gives up, because that's all that's going to happen here. There is nothing Vector could do right now to escape this. And I'm dead serious about that. There is no card in his list that prevents the loss of this game. Even him
now the miracle is the miracle shifted over to Vector to hope that Valifor just flat out misplays, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were saying too, the reason you're in this lock is because you didn't kill Valifor, but before that turn 4. I mean, that turn 4 is sealed the deal. Valifor is a psychopath, and he kept one heck of a hand. That made no sense, but it worked out for him in the end. But his hand in general was just complete suicide against a list like Vector's. But
yeah, I agree.
Vector's weakness, the reactive spells he has, he's just holding. And 3-teamer Battle Rages is super, super cocky to have in a meta that isn't really solitaire. I mean, you have Primeval and Tron occasionally, but Battle Rage is really hoping your creatures stick to the battlefield. So it's a great card when you have it, but very rarely are you seeing cards like that find effectiveness, just again because of what the meta is. If anything, I would flip Apostle's Blessings and Teamer Battle Rages.
Oh, as far as the number representation?
Well, I would just, 3-teamer is like, I need Teamer to win, which isn't necessarily true with the Rakdos Shadow list. And again, there's a lot of interaction in the meta right now. So
we saw him get pretty close. I mean, like you said, you need to kill him before turn 4. You got him down to 4 before he kind of.
Listen, I'm not saying it was. Basically, you needed the Lava Dart or Lightning Bolt, and I'm gonna bet my bottom heckin' dollar that he had a Dismember or Teamer Battle Rage just sitting in his hand the entire time.
Yeah, that's a pretty big feels bad from Rakdos. And I mean, Miracle's living up to his name. It definitely pulled out a miracle with that Terminus on top.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's no Assassin's Trophy. Even the Assassin's Trophy does nothing because you can pop Mystic Sanctuary, Cryptic, draw Cryptic with Omen. Like I said, this is completely over. And it's just a matter of when Vector gives up. At that point, you just play for time. And especially if I'm Vector, you have to know your list. And you're basically hoping your opponent makes a mistake. But like I said, all Valifor needs to do, legitimately, is just wait. Just wait. Eventually, this game is going to be over. I mean, you could argue that Vector is going for, like, I'm going to win via decking him, but that's just straight up not gonna happen, especially when you have eventually Entreat the Angels. So hey Chad, how are you? Basically. let's
Vector could just be Reduke in disguise. I mean, he's getting to play it out. That's the only thing I can think of.
Nope. No, there's nothing. Scourge's Skyclaves doesn't stick. Yeah, look, woo. You have nothing to give haste. Even if he does have an Apostle's Blessing, it's not going to do much because you have everything in the world available to you if you're Valifor. Just like this is over, pretty much. So,
yeah.
And we know
there's just watching Solitaire at this point.
Well, I wouldn't even call it Solitaire as much as it's just sad at this point. It's just kind of like, oh. Counterbalance activate. Says, oh, there it is. Okay, yep. And that's just the thing. There are, even if you manage to dupe him and you get the Miracles player to put a 2-mana cost on top, then you go dart him. Even if you manage to get that dupe, he has so much mana available. He has every spell available. He has every draw available. Like, you're not casting anything. You're not playing the game anymore. You are a total slave to what Valifor is doing right now. Valifor, I mean, for time's sake, for him alone, I would just be trying to find angels like ASAP. And also bear in mind, these angels are instant speed because of Teferi. So we are just waiting now forever.
Well, another good chance to remind the viewers that this is all made possible from the MTG at Home Discord server. Again, we'll have a link available in the chat, as well as different avenues as well, to go ahead and just join, play some paper Magic. Hopefully you're not locked out like this. And outside of that, Jared, how are you?
I'm chilling. And, just add insult to injury, he stole the Soulscar Mage. So not only will he just keep, and I think he's just going to finish him here with just a myriad of spells. So Soulscar Mage is now 2-3. You just gotta get 2 more, which is, I'd be shocked to heckin' back if that was not possible right now. This is I think.
I mean, you can minus Teferi to draw.
I think you can hear the church bells. Kumbaya. Wait, what is it? Is it Kumbaya, my lord? Kumbaya. Am I singing that?
Pretty much. No, that's
okay.
That's about right to me.
Kumbaya. Yeah, this is just sad. This is really just so brutal. And Vector can't do anything, by the way.
There it is. All right.
Vector can't do anything because of Teferi too. So it's just like, for the sake of time, man, I have to go at 4:00. I have to go in 2.5 hours, and we wasted 15 minutes of that watching Vector try to play Magic.
Round 1 was just about almost 20 minutes long, but we're going to Sideboard now, and we talked a little bit about this prior to them getting started. Now, you said for Rakdos, you're only seeing pretty much the spell bombs come in, and you just cut Dismember. Is that still what you're seeing by?
Okay. With I didn't quite think of this earlier, but with Counterbalance kind of shakes things up a bit. So there's certainly an argument for Kroxa too, just to have 2 mana, not be just Scourge. But I mean, that's again almost entirely irrelevant. I mean, Feed the Swarm and Spell Bombs, yes, because you can without blinking an eye, you get rid of Dismembers, gone forever, and you don't have to think about them ever again. And honestly, I would get rid of 1 Teamer Battle Rage, maybe not all, or maybe not 2 of them, but a Teamer Battle Rage. Like I said, Teamer Battle Rage isn't going to be like, this is why I won the game, because you're trying to win under 4 turns, and for turns 1 through 3, you're going to be expending your mana on everything that's not Teamer Battle Rage. Teamer Battle Rage is like the gotcha, like you blocked, bam. But it's not. It's not like.
It's not the end all be all of your game plan.
Plus finisher, whereas it's not finishing the game in the time slots you need it to. Feed the Swarm could also just buy you time. Counterbalance. No, like I want to play my cards. I need to play this tiny bolt. But even then, it's really just like we mentioned before. It's a 60v60 matchup, and you just gotta make them have it. Like I said, I think without blinking an eye, Dismembers turn into Spell Bombs. I wouldn't really be keeping the Teamer Battle Rages in 3s. So, and for Valifor, I mean, you're just doing Timely Reinforcements and Celestial Purge. You can argue Aether Gust to get rid of the little 1-mana dudes, but your plan is already set in motion with Terminus. Aether Gust is superiorly good against like Jund and whatnot, but enchantments, Blood Moons, whatever, but not really what you're looking for in this matchup. That's not going to be why you win, really. And a lot of your 60 is pretty good for what you're up against, especially the charms. So, I mean, you could take out even like 2. I mean, not Omen. Not even sure what you would remove from that list, because his 60, as we just showed, performs pretty well. Remands, you can argue. You certainly want the Timely Reinforcements. That's the only thing I will die on that hill. You probably don't need Entreat the Angels. We just showed that you could just easily lock him out. So We'll see. I'm curious to see what he did bring in, but there's not a lot to really shuffle around because his list is pretty effective for the reactionary form of Rakdos Shadow that he's facing. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say reactionary. More reactionary than other Rakdos Shadow lists.
Of course. And we'll be seeing Shadow on the play, just like Game 1. And let's see if they can actually have an opening 7 that does kill Miracles before turn 4.
And, I can't really blame him. He had, He had 2 Swift Spears, Mutagenic Growth, Death Shadow, Thoughtseize, Apostle's Blessing, and that was probably some form of what he kept in his opening with like 2 or 3 lands.
Yeah, the hand was just a hair short.
You needed your Lava Darts or Lightning Bolts. That's pretty much what the matchup came down to. You needed the extra 1/2 damage through to face and 1/2 boosts on your creatures. Thoughtseize was just a little shy. If it was a Lava Dart, he literally would have won the game. So,
it's very true. Now, the one thing about this matchup is I think you're hoping as the Rakdos player, you really wanted to. I wouldn't call it stealing game 1, but you definitely want to get that game 1 underneath your belt because now after sideboard, like you said, bring in possibly timely reinforcements. That card right there could be the difference between winning and losing for Rakdos if it gets resolved.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things too about that last game, let's not forget, Bellafor's hand was so bad.
Yes,
and he kept that, and it's somehow just he just drew into pretty much everything he needed. He drew into Jace, Counterbalance, Teferi, pretty much every problem that could be a problem existed. And it was just so unfortunate.
And like I said, he lived up to the deck name pretty spectacularly.
Let's just not forget, not one Condemn or Path to Exile or Opt was cast that last game until like turn 7. So oh man, it was just,
we're seeing seeing a Swift Spear and a Soul Scar come in for Rakdos as he's swinging in and dropping to 16. So, not quite as fast as the last one.
It's not over. His full attack is certainly not over. You don't hold up that lane for nothing. I assume it's going to be Lightning Bolt or...
that was a growth, it looks like.
Yeah, you don't really pass, and there's not really a Death Shadow coming out right now, I don't believe. He's put himself to 13 health, which is in position to do something about it. But this could be a Condemn or Path to Exile. Either would be an extraordinarily huge problem for Vector. I'm curious to see. He finally kept a 1-mana spell, by the way. We got it. His opening hand had a 1-mana spell in it, which is great. So we'll see which one this is. And
looks like it was. You just threw away the Soul Scar. Looks like Path to Exile. Yeah, it was Path. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Looks pretty good for Miracles to start off.
Yeah, that's a lovely little beginning to that whole thing. That was also the growthed creature. So
exactly.
You only have 3 damage going through from Vector this turn, and that's brutal. Especially he kept the land up, and he didn't have his Apostle's Blessing, which would have just totally blown this game up if he had Apostle's Blessing. So this is not ideal is a good way of putting it. Showed him his Mystic Sanctuary, which gives him absolutely no information. Which, actually, I want to speak on that. So, as someone who plays Lurish John Bobbles, I never bobble somebody on their draw when I can't do anything about it. I usually bobble at the end step because I want to plan my next turn for what they potentially can draw. Like, for instance, right there, he showed Mystic Sanctuary and he played it, gave no information, and he just surrendered that essentially for almost nothing. We see that Croxa evidently did come in from the side, which, I talked about before. Good card. It is an objectively good card. But he probably then got rid of Battle Rages. Dismembers definitely came out. What else would he get rid of? Maybe some form of Thought Seizes also, you could argue, just because there's so many things for Miracle to choose from. Ended up discarding the Archmage's Charm. Doesn't really matter what he discards. Just the fact that he has one less card in hand is soothing, at least for the Rakdos Shadow player. But this is, I would wager to say this is too slow. This is way, way too slow for Vector, and I'm worried for the lad. I mean, if he casts Kroxa from the graveyard and it's remanded, or or if it's, there are just so many venues where it's not ideal, I guess is the way to say.
Yeah, and it gives all the opportunity to Valfor just to stabilize, just like it did game one. But he's in a much better spot than he was game one because he's not solely relying on a top deck. He actually is fairly a little bit more in control this one, especially with the early path.
Yeah, I mean that early path was almost signed, sealed, delivered the rest of the game, just because that's as brutal as you can get, really. Just because it was growth, like Valifor would be significantly lower, especially if you had Apostle's Blessing, and there's just not a lot of like hope, I guess, right now if you're Vector, but curious to see how it plays out. Plays the Omens, scries a bit, and we're playing around with Lava Darts. He's recasting a Lava Dart and swinging in for 6 more. I mean, it's a good turn, but this is, I mean, you need to essentially win that turn, and it didn't quite come through. So we'll see how it plays out. He still has the Kroxa that he's able to recast. This is the Omen of the Sea. He put 2 on top, so he just went for a straight draw. So that's interesting. And it's a timely reinforcements. Okay,
there it is. Well, yeah. Like I said, that could definitely be the difference between winning and losing if that card resolves. And again, he's a turn too late.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
That 4 health has just been torturing him. I mean, Valifor's been at 4 health these back-to-back games, and you can make fun of me for saying like, oh, that like he's just 1 card away or whatever, but that's not good enough when you're up against a deck like this. Like you can't be 1 card, like that's And he played his 3rd Mixed Sanctuary and put timely reinforcements on top, by the way. So that's where we're at right now. Yeah, it's that's really tough. I mean, you can recast this Kroxa, you can play Lurrus and recast Bobble. You have options available to you, but they're grindy options. They're options you don't want right now, like options you basically can't afford. And what's nice here is that you have your Swift Spears up at 2/3s now because you're recasting the Bobble, and he still has some. I mean, he has 1 card in his hands. He hasn't played it. We know it's not Dismembers. It's a reactionary card, whatever it is. I'm gonna guess at this point it's either a Battle Rage or it's an Apostle's Blessing, because it would make almost no sense for that to be a Lightning Bolt. But yeah, again, we talked about that 1 turn too late. And both of these games, mind you, Vector has gone first, and he still has not been able to connect the way he wanted to. So,
and what's the thing that's been in common both this game and last game? He hasn't seen Lightning Bolt. Yeah, Depression too.
Yeah, this is what I was about to suggest. I would just triple block. Actually, you can go back and forth on the answer here because he can recast with Lurrus, but but you're also going to redraw timely reinforcements. So
now maybe we'll see. I mean, it's honestly, it's kind of funny. It comes down to something big like Kroxa sticking, and then like battle raging it from if you're Rakdos.
But when are you going to have an opportunity? Like, how is that? I don't even know how that becomes relevant. Because so it was a shadow that he drew. That's unfortunate, but that doesn't even really become relevant with timely reinforcements just torturing you. Like right now, he's going to potentially go up to 14 health and have 3 more guys and have timely reinforcements just available to him almost whenever he wants, based on how he.
Is that 2 or 3 sanctuaries he currently has in play?
Those are 3. He used the 3rd sanctuary only activated because of the other 2 in Hollow Fountain. So
you'll love to see it.
Comes out
and there's the reinforcements again. Yeah. He's officially stabilized at this point, and he's in a position where it's his game to lose. And I don't even see how he can do it.
And I mean, Vector still has that card in his hand. We talked about potential Teamer Battle Rage coming through, but your shadow isn't big enough. You know, you can't really even make it big enough unless you draw like even a fetch here doesn't really do a lot for you unless it's fetch, crack Sunbaked into Thoughtseize into your Teamer Battle Rage. Like that is like obviously the most ideal thing you can do right now, but you have Counterbalance up. Yep. So he doesn't know what's on top necessarily, but Counterbalance does exist. And let's see if it's a 1.
There's a Thoughtseize.
It's a land. So Thoughtseize does go through. So that's the beginning of what I'm talking about.
And he only has the command.
Oh, well, I mean, that's huge. Actually, that's humongous. I didn't know how many cards Valifor had in his hand, but that is okay. Now you have some semblance of a game for Vector. It's not completely over. It's still not ideal, though. And especially, we talked about Terminus. Like, game's over if Terminus is drawn. So,
of course,
we'll see how it plays out. And he potentially has that Teamer Battle Rage we talked about before, just curled up in his hand. He's going for the all-out attack. I was about to say, you better not attack with Luris. That would be so not ideal. Just because of the life gain, for those who don't know a little bit about Luris. It is somewhat of a no-bow, but you don't really use it for his 3 damage. It's, well, I mean, you have a game now, somewhat, right? Like, it doesn't feel too bad. Does Valifor have cards in his hand? That's what I want to know.
I don't believe so. He only showed the cryptic, and we know he has a land on top, right? From the, so.
Yeah.
So he's drawing into a land here, and
hey, that's really good. And you know, if you're Valifor, you're drawing the land. I believe it was just a land on top and nothing really actionable. That Thoughtseize draw was a total blow up. I mean, I'm glad I said it before he actually played it. That would be his like major out. But
what was he revealing?
It's a Path to Exile on top from the Bauble, which is incredibly good information when your opponent has a counterbalance. So you know what you're looking to play around almost.
Yeah.
I've now completely swayed. I think Vector has this. But okay, it was a polluted Delta. So he has access to timely reinforcements again with his 4th Mystic Sanctuary. But still, I mean, it's up in the air. Whatever is drawn here, though, he has the ability to counter. He has 3 1 mana, 2 mana. I'm sorry, he has no 2 mana. So he has 1 and 3 mana available to counter, mostly just 1. He already has a Path to Exile on top. I'm curious to see how this works out. He might have to grab that Cryptic for tap all creatures, but we'll see. I'm actually incredibly curious how this plays out. Yeah, another Bauble. Swissbeard gets pumped.
There's Path again.
He knows Path is on top pretty comfortably, but I'm just curious to see how this shakes up for what this turn is. I mean, you have access to Kroxa as well. If you're Vector, you're consistently drawing 1 additional card every turn. If you are Valifor, you still have Omen of the Sea you can sacrifice. So you can still miracle it by the end of this turn. Like there's definitely still hope available.
He is.
Yeah, Kroxa does an auto 3 damage on an empty hand. So
yep. So we'll see Valifor go to 11.
And I think this is going to be a Scry 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's maybe potentially hoping for a 4 mana stuff. He might crack that Delta into a Mystic, into Cryptic on top. What is that? Is that Big Teferi?
That was Big Teferi, yeah.
He sideboarded in Big Teferi?
I'm not sure why.
Hey, I don't play Miracles. I don't really play Control. I'm a mid-range guy, but that doesn't really make sense in my head.
Yeah, but the best way to think about it is like if you're the Rakdos player, are you upset about seeing him bring that in? Because I don't think I would be. It's a card.
No. Well, so okay, going back to what I was saying before, you had the option available to you if you're a Valifor to crack Polluted Delta into your Mystic Sanctuary, into Cryptic, into countering. Oh wait, he has no 2-mana stuff. Croxa is a 4 escape, and I'm dumb and blank. Its converted mana cost is still 2.
Yeah.
Never mind. Carry on. Move on.
Well, we saw him drop down to 5 now. He pretty much threw out all of his warriors in front, and he's getting back.
Essentially, that move was looking for an Omen of the Sea, counterbalance, or Remand to counter the Croxa. So yeah, he's going for the Cryptic, which does delay everything. This alone could help put this game in a reasonable fashion, but with the rate that Vector is drawing cards with Lurrus Bauble over and over again, it gets pretty brutal. So yeah, he announced beginning of combat. He's going to tap all and draw. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, you need answers regardless. And it's a Croxa, so he's going to be discarding one of those. I'm genuinely shocked we got to this point for Valifor. I mean, this is okay. Just swinging way back. This is what Miracles suffers from. Their game plan is entirely reliant on the Miracle, and he has just not gotten it yet. I mean, there was not one Terminus put this game away a long time ago, in my opinion. And he just, I mean, it hasn't seen the light of day yet. So
he did reveal Cryptic on top, by the way, so that's what he has sitting there for him now.
Yeah, but this is just gross, almost what we're looking at. Another recasted Croxa, and if he doesn't have a card in hand to discard, that Croxa deals 3 damage. So, I mean, you can counter the cast, but you can't do it all at once. So, yeah, you can pay here to tap all creatures and draw a card to discard to Croxa. But if this card is a land, you lose the game because that Croxa is recasted. And if you discard a non-land card, you're fine. But if you discard a land, essentially you take 3 or nothing. You take 3 damage. So let's see. I mean, that's why he drew a card with the Cryptic. He's just delaying this. But you're delaying this entirely for Terminus. And what's unfortunate for Valifor is, first of all, he only has 2 Croxas in his deck, and he's drawn both of them. 1. 2, Omen of the Sea costs 3 to scry, and he only has 2 untapped. So that's pretty much not going to see the light of day, just purely because his Terminus is got to be his top deck, or it's just screwed.
Even if he does get Terminus, he's still in a rough spot because he can recast Croxa again. And you're back from square one. You need a non-landed discard, or you take 3 and you lose.
So I think there's an argument that you could have made to cast Croxa that previous, like right now, instead of drawing with Sunbait Canyon. But I don't necessarily disagree. And with what you're saying, you also have available to you is you can just use Lurrus to recast Croxa if you so badly wanted to. That land on top is that's a death deal. We saw 2 timely reinforcements cast and Miracles still didn't win, and we are in the late game. So it's that's brutal. Miracles hardly 100%. Ever loses these games this late. Usually they're in some form of lock. That really never happened. I mean, Valifor missed a lot of pieces, and Vector hit a lot of his.
And there's the scry. Bottom 2.
That's again, going back to what I was saying, this is just brutal just because he's just gotten so many whiffs on his top decks. Not one Terminus. And he's sitting at 2 health too, so if he has a lightning bolt, it's basically there it is.
There's the scoop.
So a couple things that I found interesting throughout that match. Big Teferi was in. Didn't understand that even a little bit. You can argue just like for Lurrus, putting it 3rd from the top, but that was bizarre.
Seems like the wrong avenue to attack that game plan, though.
I mean, you saw how it worked out before. The game plan is just essentially cast Terminus.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand the use of Big Teferi. Putting
That's
in
what I'm
his
saying.
list.
Like, if the only thing you could think of for Big Teferi was to maybe counteract something like Luris or whatever to delay that, it just seems like the wrong way for Miracles to attack Rakdos and stop them or stall them. It seems like a really weird
I mean, what
option.
are you taking out? I mean, you want your Condemns. Ops are great. Path to Exile, great. Remain's great. Archmage's Charm is great. Like, there's so many cards that you want for this matchup, and Teferi on the draw especially is just not one of them. So
Yeah.
unless I'm looking at the wrong list, I think that was potentially a whoopie-doop kind of move. Evidently, Kroxa did come in, as we talked about before. I mean, we talked about it. You can definitely, there's an argument for it, especially it being at 2 mana as opposed to 1 for the getting just around counterbalance if it becomes an issue. It looks like he did get rid of Teamer Battle Rages, so the sideboard was some version of Dismember's totally out. Spellbombs probably came in. 2 or 3 Teamer Battle Rages came out, and Kroxas came in. So
Yeah.
I fully approve of that game plan. I mean, there's also no, never mind. I was gonna say there's a wild opportunity. He got rid of Thought Seizes, but I don't think in any form of this universe he would do that.
Yeah, I'm looking like.
Thanks, Red Trisma. Thanks, man. I'm gonna give up on that.
There's an attempt. I'm not going to try.
Storyteller 120, easy. That was an easy one. Thanks for the follow.
There you go.
Guys. Oh, lovely. All right, so this time Miracles on the play for the first time this game in Game 3. Certainly way, way nicer of a position to be in than on the draw versus Rakdos Shadow. I'm still just like my brain is kind of exploded that wasn't a win for Miracles. That top deck was pretty much the game because he discarded his Cryptic, and that was just whew. From there it just became
not only did we see double cast of Timely Reinforcements, or was it even 3? Was it just 2? Either way, it
was just one Timely Reinforcements that was casted twice because he put it on top.
Yeah. And we also saw the early path on turn 1 or 2 on the growth.
Soulscar Mage.
Like that. So it makes it even real. It's harder to believe that Miracles didn't come out on top in that round. They seem to have everything going for them. The big thing is
really good draws for Vector for sure.
Yeah,
this is a heck of a start though on the play for Valifor. A turn 2 counterbalance is so lethal if Vector does not make excellent use of this turn, and also if Condemn and Opt and Path to Exile aren't on the top of Valifor's library, because I'll bet you bottom dollar that we're going to see either a Soulscar Mage or a Swift Spear followed up by Bobble, basically all out go, a very similar start to we saw in Game 2.
They're on turns. Wow. Here we go. Hey, let's do it.
Well, that's what you get. That's what you get for what that Game 1 was. I mean, you can't. You just
20-minute Game 1. Of course.
Yeah. For Vector, you needed to give that up for time. And I mentioned that earlier too. Just let it go to time, man. You're against Miracles. You know it's going to be long. But hey, let's see if it works out. I mean, Vector has the ability to kill early, and Valifor is. What's on top?
It's an opt. Oh my god!
No, this is going to be a tie. No, I'm just going to say it right now. This is a tie game. This game is. How are we? Hold on. I'm curious to get the info on how are we tying in top 8. How does that make any sense? Turns doesn't make sense, right? Or am I going crazy?
Yeah, I'd be looking towards our streamer to kind of help me out with that one.
I don't really
we're
think
discussing ties.
Go to turns in top 8. I don't really think that's
okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, stream couldn't hear it, but it's logistic reasons is why we're being told. If you're gonna point at anybody, just know it is not my fault. That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Well, if anything, it's Vector's fault. Let's not even blame the logistics of it. It is Vector's fault for this, 100%.
Yeah, almost entirely actually, because he refused to give up on the lock, even though he had no answers in his deck.
Yeah.
And
that opt on top was just karma.
All blame Vector. Vector had a great opening hand, had that Swift Spear stuck, but what a brutal opt flip, man. That was just so nuts.
There's a Scourge. And opt in response.
We know it's a timely reinforcements. And the timely reinforcements is not going to give him enough health to get over the Scourge, and he's hoping to just be a 2-mana something on top for the opt.
Well, he revealed Jace.
What'd you say?
It was a Jace on top.
Yeah, but I mean you can delay, like Valifor, you can delay this, right? Like you can,
of course,
you can cast Jace next turn. You can not crack this. You can cast Jace and bounce the Scourge, like just totally keeping your life total fine. Evidently, he likes what he has in his hand more. I'm waging it's a Cryptic Command, or he already has a Jace or Teferi of some form or fashion. Or, he's just really, really hoping for that Terminus. That game, too, single one of his Terminus was insane.
Yeah, he went through about half his deck, too. He dug pretty deep.
Yeah, he really did. There was a heck of a lot of soul searching, and evidently
there were 3 Omens resolved, I believe, that game alone. And not only did he have the Omens resolved, I'm pretty sure he cracked all of them to scry. So that's already, he's digging pretty deep.
I think he put almost all but like 2 cards on the bottom of his library. So.
Yeah, exactly.
just not his game, I guess is the way to say it. If this is a pass, then it's definitely Cryptic. If it's a fetch, then it's probably has a Jace for a bounce, just delaying this. Again, we're on turns right now. Don't yell at us. I don't know how that works, but we're on turns right now somehow in the top 8, and your best hope is just delaying this game to heck and back. So we'll see how that works out, or how that plays out.
Yeah.
Rather.
Once we get to round 3 of the top 8, that's when we see time not be a factor. No turns, no time limit there. So that's probably going to be the fun one.
And the answer for turns is the final round doesn't have a time limit to guarantee results on table 1. The other rounds are timed, so we aren't here for 6 hours.
Yeah.
From the boss man himself. So there's your answer. You're welcome. You don't have to watch Magic or hear us for 6 hours.
Well, they're not gonna hear you for 6 hours regardless, because you got to bounce.
But also true. Yep. That's
they'll
why
hear
it does
me
not affect
for
me
6
whatsoever.
hours.
I'm just here to complain, and that's it.
I kind of wish Scourge had flying. I really do.
It almost doesn't make sense that he doesn't, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Because
Scourge with Skyclave,
1. Skyclave's 1. 2, he has wings. And it
maybe
almost pisses me off that they play no part in his actual card. But,
okay, look, to be fair, that tail must weigh him down quite a bit. The thing is massive.
Yeah, probably not very effective wings. So
there's a condemn on, I imagine, the Scourge.
We got a condemn into Apostle's Blessing from the attack on Scourge's Skyclaves into Teferi, which does nothing against Apostle's Blessing, which effectively counts for 2. And the condemn does not connect. I believe this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the final turn for Vector to tweak this one out. So
I'm assuming this is going to end in a draw.
Well, let's not. Hey, assuming makes a butt out of you and me. Let's not do that.
That's true.
Yep.
More counters on Scourge.
Well, you have 7 damage from Scourge as it stands right now, and you have
Aethergust.
They
did come in.
So he did bring an Aethergust, confirmed. I have no idea.
What did he side out?
I don't know.
A lot of cards he brought.
Took out. I mean, Force of Negations probably, but
yeah.
Force of Negation does help you in this matchup, so that's also like,
yeah, being able to hit a growth.
I mean, I can see it. I can see it. Sure, you know, I don't play control, so. But from my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily do that. But hey, it might have worked securing a draw, I guess, if you're Valifor.
Yeah, we keep those, I guess.
Oh, I guess they went into turns after the first couple, so it wasn't turns right off the bat. But we, I am currently unaware of what turn it is, and hopefully we can get that answer to you soon. But
4 or 5. There's a reinforcement.
We have a solid. It's either turn 4 or 5. So this is either the last turn or it isn't. But I will tell you, good people of this earth, that Miracles just played timely reinforcements, which means this game is almost certainly ending in a tie.
Hey, and if Scourge had flying, it'd be a completely different story.
Well, I'm fairly certain Condemn was just put on the top of Valifor's library, which means that Counterbalance is going to hit anything, almost virtually anything in his deck. So,
and hooray, we have a draw officially between Rakdos Shadow and Miracle. Hey, regardless of the outcome, the game itself, minus that game 1, games 2 and 3 were fairly entertaining and exciting to watch.
I mean, game 1 was still exciting, but for you absolutely have to recognize when you are no longer capable of playing.
Of course.
It's something that's not taught in so many avenues. It's not really taught at FNM too much. It's not taught really on Moto or Arena too much. Where time, like there's tournament presence, and there's tournament awareness that you have to be paying attention to. This is a very rare circumstance where top 8s are being timed just for time purposes alone. Top 8s aren't normally, but let's just take this game and put it into a regular tournament setting where there is a time you have to be abiding to. Everyone has a time between the two of you, and you just have to know that, okay, I'm locked out. I'm going to scoop right now because I'm against a control player. I know he's just going to do his best to delay every single game as long as possible. I have to save time for myself, and it ended up biting him in the butt. I mean, he had a good thing going. Like, I liked what his field looked like. It was a pretty good field. There's a tournament presence to everything, and just understanding, the consequences of time, understanding that taking, or even going the opposite way, where if I get 1 point, I qualify for day 2, so I'm going to delay this as long as possible, like for a draw.
Yeah, of course.
It's tough to say. I mean, I've definitely played games where I had full control of the board, and I only needed to draw to qualify for day 2, and I delayed every single win for as long as humanly possible, just because I wanted to go to time. I wanted the game to end in a tie. And I don't know, it's just unfortunate that we didn't get to see something come of that game, I guess. Table 2.
Now,
let's venture. Let's hop around.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to be, because we have both players representing 3 points on table 2, we're going to go ahead and spectate that one. So we have Crab, and what is Drake on? He is on is that Hollow One?
He's on the Hollow One.
Yes.
List.
Yep. So it's gonna be Hollow One versus Crab Mill, 8 Crab, whatever you want to call it.
Mill. Yeah. Crab versus Mill, or Hollow One versus Mill, which I have no idea how that matchup plays out. I mean, there's factors that play a role in it. You have Unearths that Hollow One likes playing. You have the Hollow One itself. Burning Inquiry really messes with Mill and what their initial game plan is. You have Flamewake Phoenixes that can come out of play from your graveyard that Mill is producing for you. There's a lot of matchups here that I haven't seen before that we're seeing now, and I am super curious to see how it plays out. Because I love that Mill's back personally, mostly because I beat Mill from my main deck, so I'm okay with it. Hollow One, not so much, but it adds to the diversity and just further proof that Modern is superior to every format.
That is 100% subjective. But let's go ahead and look at the mill list.
Entirely false on your end. Entirely false. Modern is superior, and if you're not playing Modern, well, you're probably playing an unfair, dumb format.
All right, looking at the 75 for mill, is there anything that you see that's going to be relevant in this matchup against Hollow One? Obviously, they took down their first game, so that seems pretty good. Now
you got a very very interesting Cryptic Incursion and Mill Cryptic Incursion. I'm not sure if that's main decked for every Mill deck. That's certainly spice. I love it. It definitely plays a role here, and it's certainly. I mean, I'll take it back. It's probably played in Mill in some form or fashion, either in the board or 60. But surgical extractions are a mainstay for every Mill list I've seen in some form or fashion in the 60. So you either have 2 in the 60 or 1 and 1 on the sideboard, but 2 is pretty common. I mean, if you have a silver bullet in your deck, Mill can probably find it at some point or another before turn 2. So you just don't have it anymore. Those are humongously powerful cards in this matchup. But Hollow One has the ability of just going very fast. And Mill, if there's anything Mill can't do, it's keep up consistently with early pressure. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, they have forms of Fatal Push, but I mean that's 4 cards of the 60, and you have Drown and Lock, I guess. But even then, it's hard to keep up with a ton of pressure, especially the kind of pressure that a Hollow One list presents. So, and we'll see how it plays out. I believe we are going to the game at some point soon. But,
but right now we're going to take a look at the. I guess they're referring to it as Jund Shadow in the. Well, they are playing some Scourge. I don't see any copies of Shadow.
No, this is Hollow One. Get out of here with Jund Shadow. This is Hollow One through and through. I mean, it's interesting that you have Clothis. It's good for grinding when you know if Hollow One gets to a top deck off, you have Traverse, you have Clothis. You have things to drag this game out further. But this is Hollow One through and through. This is about to be a very fun degenerate back and forth. But I think Hollow One is certainly favored in this matchup, and we see that one copy of Gaia's Blessing. We see 2 Veil of Summers. It's all you need is the one Gaia's Blessing, and you just pray to Hades that you don't draw into it, and you're pretty much set to go. So
I have is one question for you before we go to the battlefield. Are you excited to see Burning Inquiry cast?
No. Well, yes, because it's complete chaos of a card. No, because I hate that card. I hate all forms of graveyard interaction entirely. I am totally biased against. I have been scarred from Hogak. I have been scarred from Dredge, from Vengevine, to Oops, to freaking anything. I am just a scarred human being. So, no, to answer your question, but yes, for the sake of entertainment.
All right, are we ready for the battlefield? All right, we're going down and see this matchup, and I'm pretty excited, actually. And take a look and see who's going to be on the draw. Yeah.
Crab gang! Hey, Crab baby! I really think he's about to get destroyed, though, but I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Looks like Hollow One's going first.
Right off the bat. Yeah!
You love to see it.
So it's less Burning Inquiry assisting the Hollow One player, and more it completely screws up your mulligans for.
Yeah,
and it's random. It's just I don't know how they'll resolve this. Maybe rolling a dice, but yeah, this is just chaos. The card is just inherently chaos. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, they're rolling. So I see 10, 8, 7. So it looks like they're going odds and evens here. Representing each one, probably.
So what a freaking pull, though. If you are... Drake just got Fatal Push, Archive Trap, and and Glimpse the Unthinkable, which are humongous spells for Mills. So he just effectively saved himself. Was that 23 cards in a creature? So if a Hollow One follows this right now, it's just getting funnier and funnier. Granted, Hollow One escapes the Fatal Push regardless, but
Yeah.
What's in the yard? I can't quite make out what's in the yard. It looks like a Flame Adept, a land of some sort.
It's
But
hard
no
to
Hollow
tell.
One to follow, so maybe it was discarded. But yeah, that card is complete chaos, man. I never know how I feel about it.
We got Crab. Look at that.
One crab down, but we'll see. We'll see how this shakes out. So Lightning Skelemental, a Flame, it's Burning Inquiry, Wooded Foothills, and I still can't make out the second card is. Regardless, still no fetches, which is intelligent on the part of Drake. Granted, one Archive Trap did go in the yard. It will. Okay, so there's the adepts, yeah. And an Unearth for the Lightning Skelemental. Oh my god! This is kind of what I was.
Isn't
his
Unearth like a? That's a 2-of. So I mean, nice, awesome.
Nice. Not only did he randomly discard it, but he kept the Unearth, which is like this deck is entirely unpredictable. It's like the definition of boom or bust for me. But when it works, it's so funny. This card is so funny. So Crab is already at 11, and they are down so many cards, and they have their Crab at least. Woo. But
two crabs.
We're probably going to see fetch. Yep. I mean, a fetch push would be kind of nice.
Hollow One, Mountain, Colossus.
Yeah, all right. That's
Hollow
another
One,
Hollow One.
Bolt, and what's that last one? I didn't make it out.
Keep not making out that card. If I had to guess, that's Goblin Lore, and I think that's his second Goblin Lore in the yard.
Yes, that is Goblin Lore.
Okay. But still, two Hollow Ones. Woo, yeah, sure, cool. But you're at 3 cards. 3 cards. And you really haven't made much of a dent to his yard. If anything, he's contributed just as much with the Burning Inquiry. But we'll see how the rest of this plays out. There is a fetch. There's 2 Archive Traps down, so I'm sure he's feeling a little more comfortable doing that. These double crabs is a really good result from a Burning Inquiry. The fact that you didn't discard either crab is pretty nice because they can. Oh my god,
Skelemental. I love it. Here comes the Flame Blade too. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, of course you do. So Mill is going to end up with 1 card in hand unless he double blocks the Skelemental, which would just be insane. 1 card in hand, 2 crabs. It's not impossible, but it's certainly not a happy result. And he's going all the way down to 4 health already. This is better burn than we saw in all of Rakdos Shadow.
Oh man. Yeah, it is.
And we're going to see a fetch down to 3.
Will the crabs pull through?
Who don't know, lightning bolts are absolutely played in a Hollow. I mean, we saw 1 go in the yard, but Hollow One definitely plays bolts. So
those 3 lands going in the yard now? No, there's a traverse. It looks like 2 lands and traverse.
That's his 3rd Goblin Lore, I believe.
Push, Goblin Lore, and a land.
Yep.
All right.
So now, really good results in the yard for Drake.
I would like to ask you.
The last card was an Archive Trap, I believe. Yeah. So okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty dang heckin' good.
That's a lot of cards going. I see a Bolt going in the yard.
Yep. I mean, like I said, that's
Scourge,
incredibly nice. That's his 3rd Archive Trap.
So many cards.
So in Drake's I love the way Drake approached things earlier because that Phoenix is also going to be interesting.
That's a problem.
I'll read out Phoenix for those who don't know. Ferocious is its ability, which essentially just means beginning of combat, your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you can pay 1 red and you can return it to the battlefield. From your graveyard to the battlefield.
We also have it on screen for everyone as well.
Greater, but 1 Burning Inquiry and you can win the game. So we'll see how it goes because of his Flame Blade Adept, which reads, if you ever cycle or whenever you cycle this card, put a 1. That card gets 1 +1/+0. Jesus, I can't talk.
You got there. I believe in you.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Mill is coming back. Visions of the Beyond is a hell of a top deck when you have no cards in hand, If anybody has
Flame
20,
Blade, Traverse.
if any graveyard has 20 or more
Inquiry.
cards, you draw 3 cards. If they don't, you just draw 1. But in this case, he draws 3. Granted, he still has half a deck to go, but that's really good.
I do want to ask you though, when it comes to mill, because I'm not as familiar with mill in this format. Why have they not tried, or maybe they have, and I just haven't noticed, Maddening Cacophony from Zendikar?
Well, hold on real quick. The Street Wraith will pump this up by 1, and that is it.
There is a bolt.
Or just a straight up bolt.
Yeah, works.
Yeah, that works just as well. So yeah, that was Hollow One. I don't want to say at its best because it can get more degenerate than that, but
it was definitely a great showing.
Elemental connecting was just. I mean, at the end of the day, he discarded 7 cards just from Burning Inquiry, Skelemental. And he was really only fortunate to be in like a healthy mill position because he happened to not discard his crabs. He also happened to draw his 3rd archive trap, which is insane. So yeah, that's
I'm looking at the sideboard for Hollow One, and I blanked on Gaia's Blessing being in there. I love it. So obviously that's coming in. So cool. Probably Veil Sunderer coming in as well.
It's not great if you're mill.
No.
It's not a fun matchup. No. That's more or less how I saw that matchup going. Like I said, mill does not handle creatures very well at all. Especially when you end up discarding at random and you end up discarding a freaking Fatal Push. That initial Burning Inquiry is exactly why that card, first of all, it's just chaos. But it works out. That was a Glimpse the Unthinkable, Archive Trap, and Fatal Push in one fell swoop. And I can guarantee you'd probably want to keep those cards if you're mill.
Yep.
For mill here, you can go Ensnaring Bridge. You absolutely go Boatsu's Last Reckoning for the board. You can somewhat argue Ashiok, but it's not a good matchup for you. Aether Gust.
Do you bring in Aether Gust as well, just for that Skelemental?
You absolutely bring in Aether Gust. Yeah, you just again.
Oh, and it hits at depth as well. That's right.
You're just trying to make the game longer, and you absolutely try to do that as well as you possibly can. There's an argument for Ley Lines of the Void, but I wouldn't necessarily find a home for that. I mean, you could argue Search or Frying Insanity, but even those are part of your game plan. For Hollow One, it's a lot easier, and it's also Gaia's Blessing is it's brutal. I mean, if a Gaia's Blessing resolves, good luck, pretty much. And also this mill player isn't playing. I'm blanking on the trap name, but if your opponent had 3 or more cards put in their graveyard this turn, exile all cards from the graveyard. Like, you don't have that catch-all trap. I'm just blanking on what the trap is called. I'm not reading chat, so people start typing it everywhere. I don't care. But they don't have that trap available to them. They have Ley Lines of the Void, which is like objectively better in this format we're in right now, but it also at the same time not necessarily something you're like super happy to sub out a ton of things for against Hollow One, but I think something you pretty much need to bring in. So you're looking to take out some form of Inquisitions, maybe take out your Surgicals for the Ley Lines. You could argue crit. I don't know. I don't play mill, but I can't imagine you're too happy to be facing against Hollow One. Because a lot of Hollow One isn't necessarily just graveyard stuff. I mean, Hollow One is being cast either way. It's just a matter of what you've discarded. So you're still dealing with a 4/4. You're like, sure, it shrinks Tarmogoyf. You bring in Ley Line of the Void. I'm talking myself into it now, but there's still so many threats presented just from what's on the field as is. So
yeah, and it was a Ravenous Trap, by the way, you were thinking of.
Thank you. Yeah, Ravenous Trap. Thank you, not chat, because I'm sure at least 4 people said Ravenous Trap, and maybe one person called me an idiot. Maybe one. So there's the Void that we talked about before. I'm as time has gone on, I realize I'm more of a moron for saying that you don't necessarily love that card against this matchup, but
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it takes care of Goyfs, it takes care of Unearth in it, but outside and Traverse. And outside of that, it's just like a small boost. If anything, it just delays the way you want it to. Inquisition right off the bat. I'm kind of surprised Inquisition was kept in. I mean, you can get rid of Burning Inquiry or a creature and you can like pick and choose, I suppose, but he's only running 2 copies of it.
Yeah. Seeing
So,
Skelemental, Bolt, Adept, and Inquiry. So probably. Do you take the Inquiry here?
I think you take the Adept or Skelemental. Just you take care of the creatures that you don't necessarily have total control over. I'm curious to see, or curious to know, I guess, somewhat in the future what he gets rid of. I mean, he probably got rid of Visions of Beyond, seeing that he brought in Ley Lines. It's probably a total switch. And I can see that working out, I suppose. And we'll just have to see how the matchup shakes out. Just a pass, so no Burning Inquiry played, which is somewhat interesting to me. But I guess he's just stockpiling for a payoff card in that sense. Like I said, Hollow One can still be cast. Like the deck doesn't entirely rely on the graveyard. Graveyard is just an added bonus, as we saw from that last game with the Skelemental being unearthed.
No, I was going to ask you. We're trying to figure out last game with Madden Cacophony. Does that have any home in this in the mill deck, or like why have they not tried it? I mean, it is a 2-card combo with Fraying Sanity, which we see 2 of those in the 75.
Madden Cacophony is the Zendikar Rising one, right?
Yep, with Jace freaking out.
I mean, it's fine. It's a fine card, but if you think about it, when are you going to be casting a 6-mana spell in this deck? And Glimpse the Unthinkable already mills 10 as opposed to 8, so I think that's where the logic comes in. That is
wow.
It's 2 FU cards from both players right now. Ashiok coming in for additional mill and no fetches, and a Magus of the Moon making everything red except for that one swamp, but completely locking Crab out of this game entirely. And was that Polluted Delta? I looked over at the boards. Was that Polluted Delta played after the Magus, or he just didn't crack it in response? I had to be played afterwards, right? Oh, it was played afterwards. Never mind. I just did it in my head. But yeah, this is essentially what I was referring to before, where you don't need the graveyard to succeed for Hollow One. Like it's not your number one game plan. It helps, but it's not like be all end all type of card. That's a pretty well timed Ensnaring Bridge. We know that Drake in his sideboard has, or at least he has, Shenanigans K command available to him for artifacts. So it's not the worst thing ever, but also consider that there's nothing Crab can play. Crab can't play his hand. So besides the 2 cards he just discarded, he's just going to be accumulating cards in his hand for the most part.
Let's see what happens with this Goblin War.
Yep. Draw 4 cards, discard 3 at random. Not each player at this time, but you're certainly hoping to land a Hollow One in this case, or really just a sideboard answer to Ensnaring Bridge.
And we see...
That is nice. That's a nice little pickup. And, if you are Crab, you're just hoping to play cards. You're desperately hoping to play cards. To stay under your bridge is where I'm going with that.
Yeah. And a Burning Inquiry.
Well, it's definitely he's definitely digging for some answers. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to recur anything. Like he'll never be able to dredge the shenanigans. But you have he's just digging for that opportunity right now. So we'll see how it goes. It's rolling the dice at this point. This is a very awkward lockout. Also, very fortunate for Crab that his opening hand was 2 sideboard cards. Leyline and Ensnaring Bridge is and Ashiok, actually 3 sideboard cards. That's a heck of a just FU right off the bat. So that's almost the reason he's in this.
Yeah, 100%.
And also, as anything is being untapped with Mesmeric Orb, they're also being milled at the same rate. So we're at this like somewhat weird deadlock where 2 cards are being discarded, one being a crab. That's actually a pretty good discard for him because Magus is making this impossible to play anything. Yeah, this is just a little sideboard off right now is what we're watching.
Yeah.
I'm not in. I only assume that Hollow One. Okay, well, yeah, never mind. Game's over.
There's the Golden's command. Nice.
Yep. All you needed to do was get around 1 ensnaring bridge in the sideboard, and you are pretty much set to go. And he made him discard, and it looked like it was a Prismatic Vista, so nothing of value lost in that sense. The one sole copy of Prismatic Vista. And he's just going to be slowly touching him. And there is nothing Crab can do to play cards. Crab can draw into his 2 islands or 2 swamps, but that is his only out for this current state of things. And it's not looking too good. And it looks to be that Drake has like 20, I'm going to say like 24 cards in his deck right now. So I don't think he's going to be missing those. I think we're just watching a very slow, almost sad ending.
Yeah, Crab is essentially bleeding out right now.
This is what Crab is doing is the equivalent of the what is it? The violinists on the Titanic.
Yeah.
Oh, look, he drew an island. Okay, there's a scoop. Yep, Hollow One.
Saw depth come down.
One sideboard beat the other. That Magus of the Moon was absolutely lethal. I mean, that was pretty much game as soon as that connected. And yeah, GG's. So we're actually starting. This is interesting. I'm always curious what people bring in for their boards because I don't pilot these lists, so I can only make assumptions based on what works and what doesn't. I don't know what's bad or good in a lot of these lists. So Explosives was brought in, Ashiok was brought in. We know the ley lines are brought in, Bridge. Yeah, I mean, that's more or less what we were talking about. I was only a dum-dum in the beginning, trying to talk myself out of bringing ley lines in. But, I mean, that's Hollow One. That's exactly what you would expect from Hollow One versus Mill, in my opinion. I mean, it's just not a great matchup for you. Mill does not handle aggro well, almost at all. So there we go. Bye, I guess.
Yeah, so we're looking at all but having to... so Hollow One will be representing in the finals for Table 1 to finish out this top 8. It's just now we're waiting to see who the opponent will be. Now, I'm going to ask real quick if we have any updates regarding the other the table. Table 1 is the only one with another 3
Going to that matchup again real quick while that is being figured out in a text chat. There was one that was sideboard versus sideboard. That game was entirely sideboard versus sideboard. There was Leyline, Ashiok, and Snaring Bridge on one side, and we saw Magus. The K command came up humongous. And I don't know if we ever, Gaia's and Veils might have been cited or not cited out, but they might have been milled. But that was just my sideboard came at a better time than yours did. And that's just, that was entirely what it was. That Ashiok was a heck of a follow-up to the Leyline of the Void, but that Magus of the Moon was brutal. And that... it's just unfortunate too if you're I think Crab was going to lose that either way because the Magus was just going to lock out mana and you can't really cast cards when you can't play any cards. But there's only one Culligan's command in that Hollow One list, and he drew it, and it wasn't milled. And there's only 2 Maguses of the Moon. So just unfortunate if you're the Hollow One list, because you pretty much did everything appropriately, but it just didn't come to fruition. So, such is magic, right?
Yeah, definitely. And now I'm looking at the matchups because we're waiting on table 1 to finish reporting and everything like that. Is that Rakdos Shadow versus Shadow? Is Kiwi the other Shadow player?
I believe Kiwi is on Shadow.
All right, so we're looking at Hollowed One versus some variant of Shadow, because I don't think... Well, it depends if Miracles wins here. Miracles could win, and Vector could win, and then Miracles gets the...
I'm
tiebreaker
still
there?
trying to wrap my head around the fact that we have Hollow One in the finals.
Hey, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about the Invitational, and just this server in general. Obviously, you have a nice representation of what you would refer to as being the quote-unquote meta and top decks. We have players that play all those decks, but we also have players that, stand by their pet decks. And sometimes the pilot who's just played, let's say, Hollowed One for the last year and a half or 2 years or whatever, just happens to be better than the guy who's not quite as experienced playing maybe Rakdos Shadow, or I know Tron's not as big as it used to be, but Tron's obviously still a player in a good deck. So
yeah, I just haven't I haven't seen Miracles be played to any sort of effectiveness in a while, and I certainly haven't seen Hollow One. So that was more just like I know what Hollow One is trying to do, but I don't necessarily know all of Hollow One's weaknesses. I'm not sure if it at any point gained any effectiveness with the introduction of Zendikar Rising and cards like Scourge that it was using, but evidently didn't matter whatsoever. So I'm learning on the go as we're doing right now, because these certainly aren't tier 1 decks. I mean, they're effective.
Yeah,
a lot of decks are effective, but they're not popular by any means.
Of course. I mean, would you have picked Hollowed One to be here right now in the finals when we were going over the top 8 in the first place?
I mean, top 8 had what? 2 Rakdos Shadow, Miracles, Mill, is it Phoenix?
Copycat, no spells.
Copycat. It's so tough to say, because Hollow One is one of the more consistent what is happening decks. What kind of deck? Just like, you won that way, you won with the Magus of the Moon, or you won with double Hollow One on turn 1. Like, a lot of times it's just, I don't know. It's so hard to predict. And welcome to the most boring matchup of the day so far: Miracles versus Copycat combo. Which Copycat, for those who don't know, is the Saheeli shell with the most degenerate new cards. One being Amenath and Uro. Both very unwelcome in any format, but they're here now. And it's just basically, how much money do you have on your person, and can you afford to make a deck with that? And here we are. This isn't quite Money Pile, but I mean, you're playing Uros, you're playing Wrens, you're playing Teferis. Yeah, it's just it doesn't feel good to play against. Let's just put it that way. The rest of the shell, I guess, is fairly affordable.
I do have an update, by the way. We have our Table 1 confirmed while we're just finishing up watching this game. Table 1 will be Hollowed One versus Oops All Spells.
What the what?
Yeah.
2020, folks. Anything is possible. I do not know how that will work. I think Oops All Spells has the disadvantage in that game, just because of the speed that they can go, but also Burning Inquiry really messes things up for Oops All Spells when they need to be landing lands or their spies. I think it's Undercity Informer, and I call him Bubble Spy, but it's definitely not called Bubble Spy. It's like Balu Strayed.
It's like Balutrader or something like that.
Yeah, I call him Bubble Spy, but you're spies. And
he is spying boy.
Just like puts everything to absolute crap. Let alone like Ley Lines of the Void that were present for the Hollow One list.
Well, while we're watching Miracles and Copycat do things, do you have any...
We could probably cast an entire game, come back to this game, and cast the turn.
Probably, yeah. 100%. It's funny. So this is probably a good time to mention, obviously, MTG at Home, we have different social medias and options you can follow as well. We're on Reddit for Magic at Home. We're on Twitter, which I believe is also MTG at home at spelt out. You could correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll give you guys the correction there. And then we also have a YouTube channel, which we put up these VODs from our invitational streams, things like that. If you want to check out the previous Pioneer invitational from last month, that's on there. I was casting that one with my co-host on the Pioneer Perspective, which is a Pioneer-focused podcast on the server, and his name is Alex. And the one thing that we have cooking up and we're getting ready to, start putting out is we are currently working on what's called the Hall of Infamy Bowl, which is basically the 10 decks currently banned in Pioneer, all in one giant bracket to see what is the worst of the worst. And of course, Copycat is available and in there. So we'll definitely be able to see what the top deck is in that. And you can check that out on the YouTube channel for Magic at Home. And we got Copycat doing some stuff by going into a Teferi, which I love that art. I'm a big fan of that one.
Okay, that's great, but Teferi should be banned from the earth. So I have no, I even if it had the coolest art in the game, even if Idris Elba himself was, well, I guess it is Idris Elba, but even if he endorsed that art and was like, "This is my favorite card," I still would not care. Teferi, Pale Summer, Field of the Dead, get him out of this freaking good. Anyway, I'm not mad. I'm just upset.
I get it. I mean, Teferi is a pulverizing card, to say the least. It's not necessarily.
It's not even like a dominance thing. It's just so unfun. It's just not a fun.
I agree.
It's just. That SpongeBob episode where they end up, what is it? Not Bikini Bottom, but where they talk
Rock Bottom.
Rock Bottom. Yeah. So fair eat is poop. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I hate Teferi.
I can't understand your accent.
It's just anyway. This matchup is almost entirely favored for Copycat, seeing that Miracles does not have a ton of interaction for Planeswalkers. And all Copycat is looking to do is stick their Planeswalkers. So I think it's going to be a lot of watching for Miracles and just, almost crying in a certain sense that things are playing out the way they are. I mean, this Saheeli is probably going to stick for quite a bit. That Ren and 6 is just going to keep ticking up. And if there's anybody who's played against a Jund list for the past year knows that when a Ren and 6 is emblemed, you lose the game. Because it becomes way too degenerate as the match goes on. So,
yeah. One thing I'm curious about: do you think we'll ever see Miracle come back into a standard set? Just the mechanic?
I hope not. Was that the answer to your question?
I mean, not necessarily, because a lot of people hope that we don't see another thing like Teferi or Uro, but I guarantee you we will. I mean, look at Omnath. So,
just shut up. Stop using your mouth for evil. It's just not worth it.
Hey, Watsy, if you're watching, you can go ahead and just get Miracle back into standard. It'd be fun. Let's do Miracle and Thoughtseize in the same set. Why not?
Thoughtseize, sure, because it's a reprint. I don't know. Move on. Stop companions and stop printing Okos and Uros and oh my god, I can name 8 different cards that should have never seen the light of day from the past year, but
I like to point out that the board
Michael
state
Jordan
has barely changed.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop. Yeah. That's how I feel about the design team right now. Stop it. Stop. But going to this matchup, like I said, you're not really going to see Miracles interact. Like Terminuses are almost entirely useless. You're not going to see a lot of interaction with these Planeswalkers once they're on the board. Mystical Dispute to counter the. Oh, that's just.
I swear I've seen 3 Fairy get played 4 times since we started watching this game.
A couple of Romans here, a couple of Romans there, Force of Negation here. It happens. But once Saheeli's ultimate and Ren's ultimate are just so freaking brutal. And
all right. And I mean, Do we know what game this is, by the way? Is this game 1? Is this game 2? Because, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
The game 2 because the Mystical Dispute was just played.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. I'm so used to Pioneer and Standard where Mystical Dispute is just, main decked on a lot of decks.
And I also said Saheeli's Ultimate. I meant just Ren's Ultimate, not Saheeli's Ultimate. Saheeli's just going to be ticking up until Feldar's played.
What does Saheeli's Ultimate even do?
Saheeli's Ultimate has to do with artifacts, but it's entirely irrelevant for this deck.
Yeah, cool.
I just remembered. But this is just going to be 1 damage scry, and almost all control is for Copycat. And the reason it was all out, like Raman's Force of Negations, once a Teferi lands against a control deck, it's just depressing.
Yeah.
And he's just bouncing and drawing. Cryptic as a sorcery is just that's just a pain. That's painful to watch, really.
And for those of you who don't know what Retrace is, I mean, I'm sure most people in chat do, but for those who don't, it allows players to cast cards from the graveyard for its mana cost, plus the additional cost of discarding a land. So
basically, no additional cost, and you just lightning bolt them to heck and back, or you could,
Tails
in this shell, you can't really do anything besides the Path to Exiles, because I'm pretty sure Copycat combo isn't running very many instances, or actually, I don't think they run any sorceries either. So it's more in the form of Path to Exiles and bolts if you ever get there. For the most part, these two are just going to be ticking up, but it's still not great to deal with, especially even against just 1 lightning bolt, because you just, especially with Ren and 6 giving you land every turn, once you hit like 6 lands, and you can just pocket 3-4 lands and then deal 12 damage in a turn, up to 12 damage in a turn.
No. All right.
We're still just seeing a slow build up. Field of the Dead comes out and zombies start to hit the fields. And this is more or less what we're talking about, where it's just not a lot you can do to stop it. It's just kind of happening to you, and you accept that it is. I mean, Terminus is fine for zombies, I guess. You fully get rid of them, but there's really just, I don't know. It's just not a happy matchup for Miracles.
No. And Miracle just scoops.
Yeah.
So,
but what you don't really, there's not a lot Miracles has, especially available to them in the sideboard, that are super, super fun. I mean, you're not bringing Tail's End in here for
well, they did.
For the Planeswalkers?
Yeah, he countered it to Teferi. Yeah. Did you not hear me say, "Oh, Tail's End, cute"? Yeah, he played Tail's End here.
Well, you can't counter Teferi with Tail's End.
It's a legendary.
Oh, I guess. Well, no, you can counter. I'm sorry, you can counter. What is it? It's activated abilities, which is what I know it for. Triggered abilities and
legendary spells.
Yeah, the legendary spells. Okay, so well,
yeah,
shows how much I know about this format. I just don't know Miracles. Miracles is so out there for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But we are going to game 3, so that was game 2. It looks like Miracles actually won game 1. So
probably just on some form of counterbalance lock, if I had to assume, or just the locks they normally get through. But the problem, again, is that you face as a Miracles player versus this deck is that once they hit the field, they being the Planeswalkers, what are you doing to them? There's not a ton you can do to get rid of them. I mean, you have your Aether Gus, right? That's fantastic. You have a Purge if they happen to have a Ren and 6 that you can't deal with, or a Saheeli. But once they hit the fields, it's very plausible for those cards to be sticking for an exorbitant amount of time.
I just like the Field of the Dead out of the side. I'm a fan of the one up there. Seems fun.
Yeah, seems lovely. But I mean, what you're bringing the sideboard to, if you're Copycat, which also just to me puts it in their favor. I mean, you have access to Veil of Summers, Soul Guy Lantern, Aether Gust, Dovin's Veto, just mystical disputes. A lot of your sideboard is very relevant versus control. So, and a lot of it is skirting around counters, and that being one of the best things Miracles has in defense of Planeswalkers. So we saw the effectiveness of a mystical dispute earlier, mystical dispute against a Force of Negation. So
yeah,
it's just not happy fun time really for Miracles. And if you basically need certain cards, I mean, you need to have your counters for certain things, and there's no disputing that whatsoever. But I mean, I guess you can get rid of you can argue to keep Pat the Exiles for Uro and Amanat. Actually, definitely keep Pat the Exiles, but Condemns you can probably get rid of. Probably not winning with Entreat the Angels. You may keep that in, but I don't know. I just don't see it very favored for Miracles unless they have just a really nice hand, basically.
And if game 1 of match 1 that we saw was any indication of the hands that this Miracles player keeps quite a bit, it doesn't seem to be the in their favor kind of option.
Well, I mean, I have full faith that he keeps perfectly fine hands, but there's no denying that the initial hand we first initially were spectating him on was a little bit curious, but he ended up winning that game, so shows what we know, right?
Not a lot.
I mean, this is probably the best start you can ask for Miracles. Just turn to Counterbalance, and from now on, if you just keep fixing the top of your deck and playing along with your opponent's curve. So right now, you're hoping that you have a 2-mana spell on top because you're more than likely going to see a Wrenn and 6 or a Wall of Blossoms. Regardless, I think you're going to see a turn 2 permanent. I highly doubt this is going to be Utopia Sprawl followed up by Oath of Nissa. So you're hoping that you have a low cost card on top, and you're hoping for the miracle, as one were to say.
And yeah, I don't see how this. I still don't even know how they won the first one outside of, I guess, a lock, like you were suggesting.
Yeah, just an old fashioned friendly lock. A deck like Miracles going first. A lot of decks going first is super nice, but with the inability to almost recover a field, going first is just so nice. And this is what I was talking about. It's 4 mana, so Wrenn and 6/6. They'll get a Teferi, but it's still. I mean, this is as 50-50 as you can ask for right now for Miracles. In that, if you have an Omen of the Sea even in your hand, it's looking not so bad, because then you can cast Jace next turn, brainstorm away, and start hopefully countering what your opposition is going to be playing. But 1 Teferi lands, and it's just Nightmare on Elm Street, almost.
They should be playing
it's going to be passed with 2 lands, by the way. That's a 2-land pass. So he didn't play a land on curve. He kept a hand with 2 lands and didn't draw into another, which is brutal, but also kind of almost shows that he has an Omen of the Sea, because I would be, or Tail's End. He has a hopeful way of countering turn 3 Saheeli or Teferi.
Speak of the devil, here comes Saheeli, and in response,
he's just gonna straight up. Oh, so counterbalance trigger first, and then he's gonna counter it with
yeah. I mean, if you can get it for free, why not, right? Right,
exactly. Yeah. So that was. I mean, he hits his land, but he's still passing it, dude. If he hit his land curve prior, this would be a Jace right now in a hell of a power position for Miracles. Missing that 1 land drop was just so nasty. Essentially almost mitigated him going first.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, it's all about tempo, right? And especially when you're in this kind of matchup where it's kind of like control-y. Speaking of which, we have Teferi coming down. We see
this is probably a Teferi. So that last turn was Saheeli, because this is probably a Teferi backed up by a Mystical Dispute. So this could be an Archmage's
the
turn.
open mana.
And if you are Valifor, you hopefully have a Force of Negation for a Mystical Dispute, because these Teferis sticking means the end of your life.
Yeah, this is where the land drop comes into play, because, I mean, that's a mystical Sanctuary on top, so no counterbalance there, and I'm sure this gets countered, right?
That would only make sense because you would want to stick to Fairy earlier, and you would only play him on turn 4. You would only play him over Saheeli for protecting him with counters. So, and I don't think you bluff at this stage. So yeah, I think this is just going to be a Mystical Dispute. And for Valifor, one of the 3 cards in his hand, or 2 of the 3 cards in his hand, I hope are blue, and one of them is Force of Negation. It'll be a Veil of Summer. That's also
cool.
Almost more brutal than a Mystical Dispute. And by almost, I mean entirely more brutal than a Mystical Dispute. And no Force of Negation in sight. So no instant speed anything for Valifor. I mean, he has the we know he has a land. So he can play Mystical Dispute. He can start countering things now with Jace and Brainstorming. He does have that available to him, but it's
Here
still
comes Jace.
Pretty unfriendly. Yep. I mean, like I said, he's not out of it, because Brainstorm for just kind of guessing what his opponent's going to be playing the next turn is entirely plausible. If you are Valifor right now, would you be going for 3 or 4 mana on top of your library?
Oof.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I think you go 4, because 4 just probably kills you.
Well, an Almanac
not necessarily,
or
but
Felidar sticking is...
Yeah, that's... I mean, Saheeli getting through is kind of, rough, but I'd rather worry about the Felidar, the Cat, or the Omnath.
But this is the problem with, like, again, 1 Teferi sticking pretty much means the end of you, because you can't counter and your counterbalances get bounced. So now it's a free turn for Wyatt or YW. What is this name? I just read his name for the first time. And there's
YQTet.
YQTet. That's probably 4 health gain, and if he has a fetch, then it's add all the man. Yep. And
I'm not this free.
If he has the fetch, I mean, he definitely has the fetch, because he's playing with Ren and 6. So this is Omnath, fetch, gain 4 life on the first fetch. If you don't know what Omnath does, it's a heck of a lot, but let's go through it. His mana cost is red, green, white, blue. It's a 4/4 for 4. When he comes into play, you draw a card. Yeah, it looks like we're pulling up for you here. The landfall. So when the first land enters, you gain 4 life. If it's a fetch, you can fetch, and immediately once the second land resolves, you add his mana cost to your mana pool. And if there's a third land that comes into play, either by Uro or whatever means, you deal 4 damage to each opponent and Planeswalker you don't control. But right now, Wycated
there's the cat.
Woo! Yep. Well, Wycated has a lot of power available to him, and it is not happy fun time for Valifor. But this is what we were going back. This is what we meant. I mean, Planeswalker sticking is not what Miracles does. That is not their specialty. And certainly Teferi, just their whole game plan goes the heck. They can't do anything, really.
Teferi dunks on so many decks.
Yes, he does. And when Felidar is in play, and he can bounce Teferi, put Teferi up 5 so he can bounce counter spells, like there's nothing you can do. And by counter spells,
Miracles just says, "Yeah, you got it. Bye-bye. I'm done."
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Miracles just dipped out.
Well, so, I would too. In all fairness, that was just
Again,
I'm not entirely certain how we won the first game, but that was more or less what I expect from that matchup.
Yeah.
I only play mid-range decks. And I should say I only play decks with Tarmogoyf in it.
Get out of here.
So I don't have Control's mindset. I don't have Solitaire's mindset. I don't have Burn's mindset necessarily. So for making wrong calls on sideboards, that's probably why. Also, I don't remember the last time I saw Hollow One Miracles. There's not a lot of. That's not a very outwardly knowledgeable list you can play with.
Yeah. Hey, but we have the finals to look forward to. It's going to be Hollowed One versus Oops All Spells. A little bit of old versus new kind of thing. Hollowed One isn't the oldest deck in the world, but it came out, back with Amonkhet. So, fun stuff, right? And Oops All Spells is certainly the new kid on the block, thanks to all the modal dual lands that Zendikar Rising has unleashed onto the Magic world. They are certainly fun to play with. Oops All Spells is a deck currently in Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. I'm sure it is in Vintage too. I don't pay attention to Vintage too much. But we're here. You said you didn't know what's going to happen with Hollowed One versus, we kind of figured what would happen with against Crab. But I'm sure this is a really weird matchup. They're both graveyard-centric in a way. Obviously, Oops All Spells is much more graveyard-centric. That's the whole point. And Hollowed One can definitely benefit from the graveyard. Is it just all about who Goldfish is? Is that kind of how this works?
Not really. Hollow One's advantages play out in a couple different ways. For one, you have the spy effects is entirely how Oops All Spells wins. In this case, pretty much no Oops All Spells is putting Charbelcher in their main. It's mostly a sideboard card in case there's just as an additional end to get through your entire library. It's all spy effects. Hollow One's advantage, not only are they super quick, and certainly Oops All Spells is like, they give you 2, 3, 4 turns to play out how you want, because a lot of their modal lands, either you take 3 damage, or it comes into play tapped, or it just comes into play tapped. So they give you, they basically just let you do whatever you want for 2, 3, 4 turns, and then they go off unless they have like a Pentad Prism, then it happens earlier. But the Hollow One's advantage comes in that you can't, Burning Inquiry alone, it's so hard to plan your hands for Oops All Spells, and you just have to hope they don't hit your spies. Because if they hit your spies, you're not doing anything. You're just not playing the game. And by spies, we mean Bubble Spy and Undercity Informer. I know it's not Bubble Spy, but I've only ever called him Bubble Spy, so
it is certainly a balustrade.
So he shall be named. Hollow One can just go so quick. So
yeah,
I'm leaning towards Hollow One, especially post board. You have Leyline of the Void. You have Magus of the Moon is somewhat irrelevant unless they miss their artifacts, but Shenanigans, you have Culligan's Commands. He has things available to him that are incredibly relevant to this matchup. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I mean,
Curious.
one thing I think is interesting. I mean, I think you bring in Thoughtseize as Hollowed One. I mean, I think that's pretty valuable because again,
well, they have
Oops All Spells having pretty much a lot of their lands be or pretty much all of their lands be the flip lands. You have the option of kind of mana screwing them at certain times. That has happened. It certainly is a possibility. But then from
the Hollow One list
Spells,
doesn't play. The Hollow One list doesn't play with hand hate, or no Hollow One list plays with hand hate. The Oops All Spells has Thoughtseize on their board.
Oh, that's my mistake. I did see. I thought I saw Thoughtseize on the board on the last graphic. That's my mistake. But yeah,
I forget. I don't know about chat will, but for those who don't know,
yeah, there's 2 on the side for Hollowed One. There's 2 Thoughtseize.
Am I blind? Oh, I am blind. Okay, never mind. Anyway, for those who don't know how Oops All Spells operates, they have no lands. Oops All Spells is the on there, and it's entirely just meant for OTK kills, and they get that through their graveyard, either by Bubble Spy, or I'll just pronounce it properly, Balustrade Spy, or Undercity Informer. And now when those come into play, or I'm sorry, when Balustrade Spy comes into play, it activates, or when Undercity Informer hits the field and you sack a creature, then you activate the effect, which is target player looks through their entire deck for a land card, and they put the rest into the graveyard. Oops, all spells, there are no land cards because they have these modal lands that count as spells. So they go through the entire deck. Their entire deck is completely evacuated. And you have the effects of Creeping Chill coming into play, ideally for all 4 of them. So let's call that 12 damage, and you gain 12 health, which is the gaining 12 health is not important, but they lose 12 health. And you have Necromoebas coming into play. And the piece of resistance is Salvage Titan, and that is through once the Necromoebas hit the field, you have your swords come into play. Swords from previously popular Urza, Thopter Foundry decks. But Sword of the Meek, when a 1/1 creature comes in the battlefield, you can attach it from your graveyard, basically. So the Necromoebas hit the field, Meek, attach. And if you don't know what Salvage Titan does, Salvage Titan is sacrifice 3 artifacts rather than pay the spell's mana cost. But to get it into your hands, you exile 3 artifacts from your graveyard, and there are plenty of artifacts for them to play with. So what they do is the Creeping Chills activate 12 health, Necromoebas hit the battlefield, all 3, 4 Sword of the Meeks come into play attached to the Necromoebas. You exile 3 artifacts for the Salvage Titan. You cast Salvage Titan by sacrificing a Sword of the Meeks. And then the ultimate finisher is Vengevine, which is when you cast a spell, meaning the Salvage Titan, if it's the second creature you've cast this turn, which it is, you may return Vengevine from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then you swing with 4/3 haste. And because you just did 12 damage with Creeping Chill, that's usually the one-hit kill. Now, they've somewhat adapted to a lot of life gain in the format right now because of Scourge of the Skyclaves. So you'll see like Nexus of Fate a lot of the time in these lists, which just is simply because you go through your entire deck. If somehow your opponent survives, like if they have more health than you expected, you simply just shuffle your entire deck back in, and you still have 4 Vengevine.
All right, so let's go to the battlefield and see this matchup.
To take in there, but yes, that is effectively what they do. It's an OTK deck, and this is the finals. So Hollowed One versus Oops All Spells, as we all predicted in 2020. And Hollowed One,
a quick fetch, Blood Crypt,
start as possible with the Flameblade Adept.
Yep. I love the mat from Oops All Spells. Look at that.
That is a fantastic mat. Not as good as my mat, but a good mat nonetheless.
All right, no need to flex.
Yep, that's all I do. Me and my tiny muscles. So Cycle will boost the Flameblade Adept. I'm assuming he played that first because he knows he's against Oops All Spells, which again is inherently slow right off the bat. I can absolutely see a Burning Inquiry come out. There it is. Yeah, and I'm assuming he has a Hollowed One in his hand, and the reason he didn't cast land is because he doesn't need a land to play Hollowed One. He just wants to increase the odds that he keeps Hollowed One. Burning Inquiry, as you see, each player draws 3 cards and discards 3 cards. Each player. So it messes with Oops All Spells strategy because they need their spies. They need their lands. Yeah. A lot of the stuff they keep in their hand, their opening hand is imperative for their entire game plan. They never hope to draw into their game plan. They're not like degenerate people who play Tron. They entirely keep their 7 with a purpose. And also, Burning Inquiry gets around Leyline of Sanctities too. And, if you discard a Pentad Prism, if you discard any one of your spies, a lot of stuff can go wrong for the randomness. And Flameblade Adept, the reason it came down first is because for each card that's discarded or cycled, it gets +1/+0. So right now you're looking at 6 damage just from Flameblade Adept. There we go. Here's the not game deciding whatsoever, but this is pretty big. I mean, whatever discards are usually pretty important.
A ape,
the Simian Spirit Guide of Vengevine, and it looked to be an artifact. I think that was Talisman of Resilience. So just a mana booster for them, which is still decently important. But overall,
Six damage.
There it is. So this is why he didn't play the land before. He just wanted to increase the odds. He could play his Hollow One, and now you're just kind of going if you are Hollow One, because again, for this turn for Dominic, this is most likely just gonna be a land into play pass, or he's gonna. I doubt he takes 3 damage and plays Pentad Prism, and if he does that, he plans on winning the next turn. So we'll see what this play is. But for those who don't know, Pentad Prism has Sunburst. So enters the battlefield counters for each color mana spent to cast it. And you can remove a charge counter to add 1 mana of any color. The reason you would hustle to play that this turn is because next turn you would have access to Bubble Spy and then just go through your deck. Or Undercity Informant. But no Spy was hit, so a lot of pressure for Drake here. But he's fortunate. I mean, he knows he has another turn. At the very least, he knows he has another turn besides this one to kill him, because Dominic cannot win the game next turn. He cannot activate his spy effects. That was a bolt, by the way, to end that turn, and then Dominic's turn starts. So I'm sorry,
if we see another Inquiry, that's not quite. I mean, Inquiry plus anything else to cycle wins the game right now.
Yep.
Assuming no interaction from Oops All Spells.
That'll do
there's
it.
A skeleton.
That is a
there you go.
Close.
Skelemental, baby.
Yeah,
that
so
looks
this
like a win for Hollow One.
Spells really kind of trips over themselves. Their first 2 turns are incredibly passive. Even Primeval Titan decks, even some Tron decks, it can interact a little bit more than this right off the bat. So, yeah, that was more or less expected. I mean, if you are this Oops deck, there's not a lot of cards. There's not a lot of cards you can bring in to delay this. I mean,
I think he got him.
He has 1 Void Snare, but honestly, if I were him, you probably are bringing in your Charbelchers just because of Burning Inquiry. Like, you don't want to miss out on a spy effect, because you just want more options available to you. Ideally, you discard the Charbelcher and you keep your actual spies, but it's real brutal if they get to you in that sense. So that was more or less how those matchups go. You know, Oops All Spells does not do well against aggro, which, going back to what we were referring before, that's why this format is so healthy right now. I mean, your Oops All Spells is a very dominant deck right now. It is. It's in a lot of modern challenges. Paper Magic doesn't exist anymore, so we don't know the results of that. But it's making splashes in modern challenges all over the place, and those are the highest level of competition we have right now for modern. And it's being beat by Hollow One, which has existed for a long time. So
yeah. I love the deck. It's hard to believe that it's here. It's hard to believe that it's the one putting up the numbers. But yeah, this seems like a really, really solid matchup in favor of Hollow One, especially now that we've watched it unfold on. It's like you said yourself, turns 1 and 2, extremely passive from Oops All Spells. And that's pretty much universal across formats, whether it's Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, it doesn't matter. That's just how the deck functions. You're really hoping to goldfish your opponent and get a turn 3 spy or stack effect in general, and if you just stumble, like you said, which those tap lands alone can make that happen, you fall behind so quickly. And I'm not sure. I mean, I think you have to bring in, just because you see the 4 ley lines from Hollow One, I think you have to bring in Nature's Claim and maybe even Wilt as well, just to be like, I mean, that card alone just stops your deck. So
Vendetta, Void Snare, Nature's Claim, and if you're the Hollow One player, you're probably bringing in Thought Seizes, Shenanigans, Culligan's Commands, and probably I don't want to say definitively, but Magus of the Moon could play a huge role if you manage to keep the artifacts in check, because Talisman and Pentad Prism, if you have already a Blood Moon effect out, are the only ways they can get black mana, because they don't have basics. So, I mean, there's no land destruction for a Hollow One list. I don't blame them, because they always go faster than needed. So no cleansing wildfires or anything like that. But yeah, it's just a good matchup for Hollow One. It really is. more often than not, they can deal. Well, we just saw there they dealt 20 damage in 3 turns. So, and only 2 turns for Dominic and on Oops. So, yeah, it's very favored for them, just for the sheer fact that Oops is not doing anything to interact with you.
Yep, and the best way that Oops All Spells can win right now, if you see as fast as a start that Hollow One had last game, you got to get your game going on turn 3. You got to get that spy effect down on turn 3 to stay alive, and then you can win that way. But the problem I see here now is, let's say Oops All Spells does Goldfish, turn 3 wins. Hollow One goes on the play for game 3, and if we see anything close to what game 1 had to show, you got to give Hollow One the extreme favor on the play. So taking game 1 is so important for Hollow One in this matchup, because you're okay with potentially losing game 2, which they could still very easily win game 2 on the draw because they're so fast.
Yeah, and, there are a lot of things that happened there for Hollow One to win that. First of all, Simian Spirit Guide being discarded was huge. Not discarding your Hollow One, not discarding your Lightning Skelemental. And it was a very good hand, and very fortunate things happened. So, that was pretty much best case scenario for Drake on Hollow One. So it's not so to say that it's going to be a turn 3 kill every time, but you could slow it down.
Potential's there. Oh, and a ley line to start. That's horrible for Oops All Spells.
Disgusting. Yeah. But that's why you bring in the Nature's Claim for Oops. You should entirely predict for ley lines to play a role.
Yeah,
I think
it's just a matter. Yeah, I think you did it as well. It's just a matter if Oops All Spells kept to hand with Wilt or Nature's Claim to start off.
Looks like it.
And there it is. Nice. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
We're happy to be here, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, we'd hate to see a non-game.
Yeah, and he paid 3 life to gain 1, essentially.
And a Thoughtseize.
That ley line is...
See, there's the Thoughtseize. Now, this is where it comes into play pretty big. Now, what lanes do they have in play right now? That's the turntable, whatever, Symbiosis, whatever, right?
Yeah, Symbiosis, something or other.
Yeah, so it's a green. Now, if you take... Ooh, what is that? I see double apes.
Agadiums, it looks like, and...
Yeah, you take the Black Source. Yeah. That's exactly what I was saying. Thoughtseize is huge right here because you can choose what land to discard now because they're all spells. So getting them off the Black Source is massive. Absolutely massive.
Yeah, but it's not to understate 2 Simian Spirit Guides. What you need to draw into if you're Oops here is either Pentad Prism or Talisman of Resilience and a Spy. You're still very much in this game. That having Nature's Claim right off the bat was humongous. I mean, that alone probably gave him any sort of chance to win this game. But his hand does not look good. I mean, he drew Nexus of Fate, which is immediately not great. And 2 Simian Spirit Guides are just kind of chilling in his hand. I can't quite see that card because Dear Lord is his light shining right down on him. But it looked to be just that looked like a Shatter Skull smashing, but man, that's difficult. Anyway, Drake now is just pedal to the metal. I mean, he's had a good opener. His opener was objectively fine. It was an
Agadeem's Awakening. So he did find the Black Source.
Okay, thank you for picking that up. Good for him. But it's just go time right now for Drake. Like he's done. That was as good of an opener as you can get. Thoughtseize, grab a spy. He was looking for a spy, but Thoughtseize, grab a spy, and with a ley line of the void. That's as best of an opener as you can get. Now it's just a matter of going, and it looks like he got a spy. Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
So not only did he... So you got the Moto bug for Thoughtseize. You take away their card, and they draw it right at the top. He gets the Aghanim Awakening again. Then he top decks a Spy with the Ape still in hand to just be like,
gross. And he had double Ape in his...
He just scoops. Yeah.
I hate this
All
game.
one just scoops.
But I still hate this game.
All right, so this is what we're talking about. Like, he got... Those spells probably had the best possible top decks there. And Hollow One actually had a pretty good hand to start. Usual Spell's just, obviously better at the game than the Hollow One player. But again, this is what I was talking about.
There's a lot of, oh my God, that was just depressed. There's a lot I want to say, but I'm a little bit depressed right now. That was stupid. That was just so dumb. That was Nexus of Fate Double Spirit Guide. Obviously, when you see the Double Spirit Guide, it's a little concerning, but the fact that he drew perfectly lands into Spy was...
Yeah. Again, it's the Moto bug. You literally Thoughtseize away the Aghanim Awakening. Like, yeah, get that black source out of here. Next card, Aghanim Awakening.
I'm disgusted right now. I'm disgusted.
See, because of the pandemic, we've had only Moto as the option in Arena, I guess. We've only had those options to play when it comes to Magic outside of our wonderful server. So clearly, the bugs from Moto have actually transferred into real life. We're seeing it here. It's live. It's beautiful. But again, this is what I was talking about last game, where you just go like, okay, well, Hollow 1, sure. Game 2 is a wash. You literally couldn't have drawn better than Oops All Spells did there. But again, Game 3, on the play. You're Hollow 1. You have the chance to just kill him as fast as possible. I still give the favor to Hollow 1 here. And it just comes down to, especially, let's say he opens with another Leyline and then has just options to be like, yeah, smack you a few times. Like, Hollow 1's still
degenerate. I'm still so upset. I'm upset for him. That was just gross.
Yeah.
We'll say that Drake needs a very similar opener. I mean, if he had the same opener, he would be able to take Nature's Claim, and this game is totally different. So,
yep.
I'm curious to see how this plays out. I should stop saying I'm curious, but Leyline of Sanctities probably sided out, right? I can't imagine those were kept in because Burning Inquiry doesn't target. I guess it saves you from lightning bolts, but for the most part, not a lot of stuff targeting you. So
yeah,
I think these thought seasons that Hollow 1 brings in are even more effective. Knowing that,
that, but watch us see like double Sanctity get dropped right now.
I mean, that would probably be pretty good for Hollow 1. There's another Void. Okay, so turn 1 opener Void. I
kept 7 again. Look at that. And is it Thoughtseize? No way. No way.
You got totally screwed the last time, but it will not happen again.
So here's the Spirit Guide. Here's a Spy and Aghanim Awakening. You take is that double Spy? No, that's the calling.
Claim, right?
Yeah.
That's the last one was the Nature's Claim. I can't turn your freaking light off, man. What is the It is Nature's Claim.
I think it was Nature's Claim. So he lets him have the Spy. I mean,
so literally what I just said literally happened. This is almost, those were very similar openers from what we saw before. He had the Nature's Guide, and he had a Leyline of Void Thoughtseize opener. Honestly, I shouldn't be biased, but I'm super happy for Drake because that was BS when I last game. So.
Will we see the Scry bug again though with Thoughtseize, and he just top decked
Nature's Claim? Shut your damn mouth. That's what I'll say about that.
I mean, he brings in 3 of them and then 2 Wilt, so he still has 4 other copies. I'm assuming he brought in the 2 Wilt as well.
So going back to this, Burning Inquiry was humongous in that last game. A Burning Inquiry now would be game deciding too, because if he can manage to hit the Spy, that is just adding on to it. What's surprising me though is that it was a pass. So I'm guessing it's bolts at the end of this turn. No, bolt. It's got to be bolt, right? There's no way he
just a single bolt.
Okay, just a single bolt. So this is lightning skelemental then, because I don't know what else his hand would be if he just, or maybe just a Tarmogoyf.
I mean, he could have just seen Thoughtseize and Leyline, be like, yeah, whatever else is in my hand, I don't care. And that's truly a possibility as well.
Yes. But a lightning skelemental would just be also insane right now. So
I can't tell if he's tapping or not. He's just
kind of like his first green source. So that's why I'm thinking either Clothis or Tarmogoyf, but I'm leaning towards lightning skelemental in my brain skull right now. But yeah, we'll see. Very exciting.
Pass?
What was just?
I think he passed. I'm so confused. I'm seeing hands. Oh my goodness. It's beautiful.
Huge. right now.
Yeah.
That was Omega
Moon
huge.
Boy.
He doesn't have access to black or green at all now, though. He only played a basic mountain, so the rest we can expect to just be red cards. Flameblade Adept is in play. Phoenix is in play. Skelemental is in play if he manages to draw a black. He doesn't. He only bolted once. He doesn't even have access to Culligan's command, but he does have access to Shenanigans, which could also potentially pull him back. Although I keep going back and forth on this. Dominic, what he needs to draw now that Magus of the Moon has resolved is a combination of Pentad Prism or Talisman of Resilience, and he needs to then draw Nature's Claim. So that's solving one. He has a Pentad Prism that only goes one, by the way, because
he only has. Now it's unfortunate that he played this Shadow Skull Smashing because he only has one in the deck. That could have been his removal. They could have been able to play for the Moon.
That's a very good point. Yeah, you barely think of these cards as spells, but yeah. So he says Underformer. We know he has, and he just played a mountain essentially. He's just going to be
Magus coming in.
This Pentad Prism's any color though. It is certainly still an issue.
Another Magus. Oh my goodness.
But you say, "Oh my goodness!" But Dominic has an opening where he now needs to draw one of his 3 nature claims. I assume he brought in all 3 to take this game back. Or if he brought in his wilts,
I think he did. I feel like you have to when you look at 4 ley lines on the other side. I feel like you kind of have to.
Yeah. 3 ley lines, but yes.
Is there only 3?
Well, Drake is hoping on like a slow burn here, and honestly, I think best case scenario for Drake is if he draws a Burning Inquiry, because I mean, Burning Inquiry, you get rid of Spy, and even if he draws a Nature's Claim, you can still delay the game and still hit him for 4. This is a very interesting lock back and forth. It's going to hard cast Spirit Guide, which I love because he's got 2 Magus. He doesn't need the Spirit Guides anymore. And he's keeping, I think Dominic is smartly withholding cards in his hand, even though I'm fairly certain he's drawn into lands because a Burning Inquiry, he wants to keep his spies,
There's a fetch.
A Flamewake Phoenix would just be insane right now. Well, let's see if that's the case. Yep.
There it is.
Yep. Again, Flamewake Phoenix, for those who do not know, it has Ferocious. So beginning of combat, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may pay red. If you do, you can return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. In this case, you just hard casted and attacked, but it's still pretty effective. It's interesting to me though. He didn't attack with the Maguses either to guarantee 2 damage through. There is no like lightning bolt effect that Dominic has access to anymore. So that was decently interesting from him, but it's just playing it safe. You're just keeping your stuff on the fields, and this is kind of shaping up to be not worst case scenario, but one wilt or Nature's Claim, and you virtually lose this game for Drake, and you're not going nearly fast enough to be able to afford these cute 2 damage attacks from just Flamewake, which is also why I was insisting that you attack with the Maguses earlier, because you really need to speed things up. Truly. I believe that's Shenanigan. Wait, no, I'm sorry. That was a cycle, I assume, at the end of that. But yeah, it's not looking good for Drake, to be honest. I think as time goes on, Dom gets stronger in this sense, especially because he's got access to what he needs now, mana-wise. But he's just looking for 1 card. Grim Lavamancer is a hell of a pull, though. That is... It's going to speed up the game. I mean, 1 Lavamancer trigger on that Spirit Guide, and you are now swinging for 6, and you've now made this a 2-turn game for Dominic. So Dominic's next 2 cards are game deciding, literally.
I think he should be swinging in with both of those Maguses, though, because let's say he makes the trade with the Simeon. I mean, you still guarantee 2 damage, and you just then you can start swinging next turn too. Like you open it up again. I think you need to speed it up a teeny bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing it in case he has another Spirit Guide, and then, but I can see the hesitance. tapping Talisman, going Pentad Prism, double red. Is this a... I'm curious what this is, because it's not a Nature's Claim. It's just hard to have Vengevine.
Oh, Vengevine. Vengevine. My bad.
I love that play. And he's swinging in with it. He's going for it. So now this is officially back and forth. I will say that Dominic no longer has access to the Pentad Prism, and he only has either black or green for a turn. So we'll see how this shapes out. One Lightning Bolt definitely swings things open. Unfortunately, he keeps drawing mountains. He's going to definitely ping off that Simian Spirit Guide, and he has 6 damage threatened. And he's just going all out for this. So like I said, it's a 2-turn game for Dominic.
Presenting lethal next turn, I think.
Not I think. Absolutely presenting lethal. I mean, we knew that like a couple turns ago. But
yeah.
It's I mean, if you look at it this way, that was Dom is potentially at 2 health right now instead of 4 had he swung with the Maguses earlier. So it depends how you want to. Actually, no. 1 attack, 2 attack, another here. Yeah. So he would have been at 2. He would have been at 2.
Well, if he swung the first time and then the second turn, if we're assuming Vengevine was not in his hand the entire time, he'd actually would have killed him because he did it twice. He passed twice with double.
Oh,
yeah, he passed twice with double.
These are now super interesting. That ley line is gone. Dom's back up at. So this is the top deck he needed. He does have access to black. He does not have access to the Pentad Prism, which is in favor for. I'm sorry, he doesn't have access to black, but his graveyard is now open, which means next turn he can win. Dom can win next turn.
Yeah,
he has that 1 access to black, but. Let's see if he can put this together. Vengevine should be untapped.
There it is.
Yep. Drake is also at 12 health because Vengevine had attacked the prior turn. So,
well, did he get bolt? Nope, just with the.
Okay. So he might have a bolt in hands,
or he's just gonna try and ping for lethal from.
Well, yeah, because he needs to pay 1 health for the black or green source. From the Talisman. And I'm not sure what the discussion here is. Oh,
yeah, so it was the Grim Lavamancer was tapping or exiling stuff.
So Hollow One takes it. 3-2-1 Hollow One. Jeez, man. That was exciting. Wow. And those are honestly, like, as far as Dom's draws go, those are pretty good draws to get out of that. I mean, he drew 2 Nature's Claims available to him that game. Got a Pentad Prism. He got his Talisman. Like, those were pretty fortunate draws in the position he was in. The only thing you could argue for Drake is that he attacks sooner with the Maguses of the Moon, but I understand his hesitance. But congratulations. I mean, Hollow One just won a Modern tournament.
Fun.
Let's do an interview. Let's talk.
Bring in Drake.
Let's talk to the boy. I'm still impressed that Hollow One just took it. And, that's Hollow One just took it versus a tier 1.5, tier 2, 1, whatever you want to call Oops All spells. It's popping up everywhere. It's a very effective deck. It's a resilient deck when it needs to be. He just took it. So that's crazy that we're in 2020 and Hollow One is still... And there wasn't really anything from new sets that Hollow One was pulling out that were like a reason they won that. He has Feed the Swarm in the sideboard, but that's the only card, and Scourge, but Scourge and Feed the Swarm were never relevant through this entire thing. So
we didn't see Scourge get casted once. We actually saw it milled a couple times. And there is the champion himself, Drake. How are you? You just won. You just beat a extremely relevant deck, an up-and-coming deck, or we can't even call it up-and-coming anymore. You beat Oops All spells. And on a deck that's about 3 years old, and you got there.
Yeah, once I realized I'd qualified for this event, I basically was thinking about what I wanted to play. And, I own, like, Dredge, and I own Death Shadow, and the Red-Black Scourge. And I was like, well... Since there's no like prize money or anything, I might as well just have fun, play like a pet deck, and just enjoy myself. And I stressed a lot on my sideboard before this because if you sideboard poorly with Hollow One, you just lose. Like you have a couple matchups like Mill where like I was thinking about putting in 2 Abrades, but the last time I'd played against Mill, they had milled both my Abrades, and so I was like, oh man, I got to do something about that. And I think I got pretty lucky round 1, and then of course I think you guys saw the round 2 game right against Mill. My whole goal was just Magus of the Moon, try to win. That was it. That was my whole strategy, throwing Gaia's Blessing and hope that they mill that. But I'd previously played against Mill, and I beat them with Magus the same way that I did that game.
Your sideboard decisions ultimately ended up winning you the tournament. I mean, every game we've spectated you, whether it's well-timed Culligan's Command, your Grim Lavamancer certainly did a lot of work here. Leyline of the Voids won you, Magus won you, Thoughtseizes also won you that game. Kudos to you, because almost every card in your sideboard played a very relevant part for this entire tournament, and you beat very relevant decks with a deck, and you didn't use any new card. I mean, you have Feed the Swarm and Scourge, but you didn't play them.
Yeah, so Scourge in the main is really just for the Death Shadow matchups. But my sideboard is definitely something I thought about for a long time, because I kind of knew generalizations of what people might bring, right? There might be a control deck, I know there's going to be like some Scourge decks going around. Yeah. That last game though, I ripped the 7. I see Leyline of the Void, Thoughtseize, Black Land.
I was about to ask you.
Insta-kev. I don't know if you guys could hear what we were saying.
We cheered. No, we can't hear. But I cheered.
I was like, keep.
Yeah.
And they like mulliganed, which is a great sign if you have Thoughtseize. And
because we were talking about game 2 being just a heartbreaker, because you had a really amazing hand game too, and it's like Thoughtseize bug. You took the Agony's Awakening, which I was talking about prior to sideboarding. Like, hey, Thoughtseize is relevant because you can take their actual black source, keep them off of Spy. You did that. He top decks it, and then he top decks a Spy, and it's like, hey, I win.
Yeah.
To see on game 3, you're just like, exact same hand. Let's do it again. That was just beautiful.
I got real. I drew Magus, and I was like, okay, this is really good. They have to have Talisman or Pinhead Prism, and they can only do Prism on 1. So I played the Magus of the Moon. I'm like, okay. And my opponent goes, I have 1 card that can beat this. And so I'm already cheering. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a 1 of in his deck. I know the flip land, the red bolt flip land. That could have killed Magus. And then I immediately ripped the second one off the top, and I was like, okay, well, I have 2 Maguses now. Whenever you hardcast Vengevine, I was like, oh, I could lose. It was like Vengevine. I'm like, looks at my life total. I've been, hurting myself quite a bit, and it was definitely a fun tournament. I'm glad I qualified. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
We have a question from chat, so we're listening to that.
So we have a question from chat, and that question is, why is Traverse in this list?
Yeah, so Traverse, so this whole deck idea started as just kind of a joke to myself, like I want to play 5-color Hollow One, right? That's the end goal. It's not going to be good, but I was gearing towards that, and I had made a teamer version that had Traverse that I was just used for like Tarmogoyf and stuff, just as like a value. It was a more mid-rangey style. And then I realized that if you cast Burning Inquiry and you keep a Traverse, you can get Hollow One if you have Delirium. So it essentially acts as copies 5 and 6 as Hollow One. It's very good post-sideboard in a lot of matchups to get your, against humans or Death and Taxes to get Grim Lavamancer, to get Lightning Skelemental for lethal. And so it was a card that, I'm not 100% sold if it should be in the deck or not. I think there's an argument to cutting it and going up an Unearth and a Flamewake Phoenix to be even more fast. But it's been a card that's been really good against like more mid-range and control style decks.
So I have a question. Personally, with that last game, the only thing I was curious about my prediction is that you were just worried about another Simian Spirit Guide, but you kept your Magus of the Moons up when he had just a Simian Spirit Guide. Was that because you have Grim Lavaman, so you knew you could take care of it, or were you afraid that he had removal for one of your other Magus had he trade your guide?
So I think he had the what is the card? The Undercity. Well, he had Undercity Informer, and so I was worried that since that's a 2/3, there could be a scenario where I swing, they trade, and that's like not a favorable trade for me. Like I have a clock eventually, and I knew that they had to draw multiple hate pieces. Like they had to draw Nature's Claim, and another spell, and another land. They had 2 draw steps, and at that point, I figured once I drew Grim Lavamancer that I would have a faster clock. And there could be an argument to trying to just get the game over before they can draw those, Nature's Claim or whatever. But at that point, I was like, I have a pretty decent board state. I'd rather just keep the Magus of the Moons because I know it's screwing them out of mana. And there might have been an argument once they played the Talisman to just start attacking because they had the 2 colors to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, I decided better safe. It was definitely a tense moment. Yeah, it did work out,
Worked out pretty well. That was a heart beater.
Oh man.
But congrats on the opening hand on game 3.
Oh man, yeah. After I drew a Leyline of the Void, and I was like, that doesn't speed up my clock at all. Like, at that point, I'm hoping to draw a Mountain because I also had Scourge in hand for a while, and or maybe that was game 2. I had Scourge. Yeah, game 2 I had Scourge, which I was like, oh, they hurt themselves, right? They bolt land themselves. So I was hoping to just drop a turn 2 6/6, but yeah, they had a really good hand game 2. It was a fun match, I brought in like 10 sideboard cards because I was so nervous about, they have Wilts and Nature's Claims and Summary Dismissal, I think. No, Void Snare to bounce.
Yeah, it was Void Snare.
Yeah, Void Snare. And so I knew that they probably weren't going to Thoughtseize me because I think that that's not great since I'm not a combo deck, really. Like if I just dropped, Tarmogoyf, Thoughtseize is pretty bad against that.
Yeah. All right, well, 2 quick things before you go. First of all, again, congratulations on winning with Hollowed One with a 3-year-old list.
Yeah.
The 2 things for you before you go are 1, what are your current thoughts on the state of Modern? And 2, is there anything you want to plug? Go.
So the current state of Modern is it's interesting. I was not a fan of the Uro meta and Uro Prowess dominated meta. To me, it was very like linear. You're either playing a Uro, you're playing Prowess, or you play some deck that you think in your mind beats both, which I can't think of many. I think the format is a lot better. I really enjoy formats where humans and Death Shadow are good cards.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think I like how they play out. Sometimes you can beat those decks with really janky combo decks. And as I've been playing in these leagues, I haven't really found a single deck that's been like terrible to play against. Maybe myself if I were to play the mirror, but not that many people playing. Yeah. So yeah, I think the state of Modern's pretty good right now. Sure, Uros, still probably the majority, but I haven't run up against it that much here or online, really.
Go ahead and plug whatever you'd like to plug.
Yeah, I'd like to plug the Pancake Boys, my team from pre-pandemic team, and Hollow One as a deck. It's a lot of fun. Obviously with this top 8, I got to sideboard a little more closely than an open meta, and I didn't get to play Blue Eye Control, so that was amazing. So yeah, and I'd like to thank the Discord for having these. It's been a lot of fun. Met a lot of really fun people. Had a lot of good games. So
awesome. We have one more question from the chat.
We have a question from the chat, which is, what is your hardest match and what is your easiest match?
Easiest match, probably Phoenix, just because my sideboard lined up extremely well, and I just had the nuts game 1 of the just turn 2 Hollow Ones, turn 1, on the play. So that's pretty hard to beat. And then game 2, I just had Leyline of the Void, which they actually Blood Mooned me out. even though I play Magus of the Moon. They blood mooned me out because my hand was 2 fatal pushes, and that was a fun match. Game 3, I just ran over them. Hardest match, definitely the one I just played. Even though it was so fast, the games lasted. I mean, besides game 3, it was like turn 3 kill, turn 2 kill, right? Or I think 2 turn 3 kills. So yeah, so blazing fast speed. And I assumed game 3 was hopefully going to go longer since I got to start, and I had Thoughtseize, and I was trying to draw it out a little longer than the first 2.
All right, man. Well, congratulations again. That was you definitely hit the nostalgia button for a couple people right there.
Oh yeah, the good old Hollow one. Hollow one is it Phoenix round 1 was a blast to early 2019.
Well, congratulations again, man. Hope you enjoy the victory and your little tiny prize.
Thank you so much. It was good talking.
GG's.
Of course. All right. Sounds good.
Take it away, Brad.
Everyone else finished, so I would like to thank every single one of you in chat who have joined us. Even if you joined us for one game and you just bailed and you're not here now, thank you anyway for coming by. Thank you to MTG at Home and the entire community that we have here. We did pass 1,000 members last month, so we're happy for that. We continue to grow. We have a link available to you guys to go ahead and join yourself and check us out. Come on in, play some Paper Magic. It's fun. Like Drake said, you meet a lot of cool people. You can meet myself. You can meet Jared in some capacity, half the time, sort of time, sometime, never time. Okay, well, you can bug him. You can DM him and just tell him, he's bad at Magic. Make him feel good. Make him feel welcome.
Also, yes, you can definitely bug me as much as you want. But huge credit to both Brad, Foam, and people behind the scenes, Matty Boy, Tan May, for helping out with the production. This is as smooth as you can get for what we have available to us right now in this global pandemic. Wear your damn masks and please vote. Thank you. That's
exactly
what I want you to do.
And if you want to check, the Pioneer Perspective, which is the Pioneer focused podcast, even though you're here to watch Modern, we might have a Modern podcast available at some point. We're working on that. And you might be able to hear a bit more from Jared after that. You can also follow me on Twitter at Bradsphere. You can follow MTG at Home on Twitter, which I believe is the same. Jared, where can they check you out? I know you stream a bit.
For just Magic-related things, I have a Twitter, at Jund Jared. As you can tell by the name, I only play Jund, so that's my knowledge of what Miracles is looking to do sometimes. But other than that, I'm a photographer, so follow my photography Instagram page, Jared R. Photography. Bam!
Sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for just being here in general and all the support we have, whether it's on the Reddit community, whether it's here on Twitch chat, in the server itself. Again, all the people behind the scenes. And we will hopefully see you again next time. Bye-bye.